Such thing as failure, really, because failure is just that thing trying to move you in another direction. So you get as much from your losses as you do from your victories, because the losses are there to wake you up.
We see a startup failing. Now, what's the difference? The difference is basically because one has been supported and the other has not been supported. But generally speaking, I think that there are a lot of startups, and with a hub like AFF, a lot of startups will be willing to actually go into business knowing fully well that they will be supported by us.
Everybody is struggling with payment and looking for a new payment idea, and how, meanwhile, there's so much more that could be done in terms of social entrepreneurship. You have in the US a startup that is like an Uber for ambulances, but you don't have that here in this country. So what you have, which people don't really know much about, is there is a logistic company that delivers blood banks for hospitals, and that is big, but we don't have people doing that. You have people competing for payment, for e-commerce. Meanwhile, there's so many other things you can be doing: financial management, financial planning. I feel like in this country we're doing about 20% on the startup ecosystem, and I feel there's so much more that can be done.
Welcome to Access Bank PLC for the Sustainable Finance Accelerator Program 2024.
One of every 2 Nigerians will bank with Access Bank over the next few years. That is the goal.
We are at the foundation level.
The business leaders see sustainable environment as a long-term gain project.
The NDCs speak to how we, as a country, Nigeria, are thinking about addressing climate change issues.
Welcome once again to the Access Bank Sustainable Finance Accelerator Program.
We are the largest bank in the country by assets, by deposits, by payment capacity, etc., etc.
We're on a journey.
Success Tab in Lagos, we've got tabs in Edo State, Enugu State is really trying to digitalize. So we've got a lot going on.
And a journey to take our country and our nation from where it is today to becoming an industrialized one.
Unfortunately, what seems like a lot going on is only accessible to about 2% of the country. So we need to scale.
We're not transitioning to gas. We're transitioning with gas. So gas is our transition from.
What we do is we are converting existing kekes and koropes from petrol engines to EVs.
So how can you bring in this to far north, south, east, west?
These are the partnerships that we want to bring together.
CSR across multinationals, across large corporations is a huge chunk of funds. What are we doing to try to green CSR? So the government have done a lot, but then there is a need for awareness and sensitization, and I sincerely believe that this avenue provides us the opportunity to do that. So we're not where we want to be, but we'll get there.
And with that, we can bequeath a better economy, a better environment, a better government to those who are coming.
True.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I encourage each and every one of you to take advantage of this, because what this will do is that it will push your businesses to the next level. And of course, we want to create that impact that is necessary for us to move to the next level in our beloved country, Nigeria.
startups with billions of dollars. Africa is on the rise.
As much as fintech is about technology, that technology has to work within the rules of the game to make sense.
The Big Tech Show travels across Africa on the quest to meet the minds at the forefront of these tech innovations.
This is the fourth revolution that Africans are participating in, solving unique problems in Africa for Africans.
Join us on our journey across Africa as we talk to innovators and game changers in Africa's tech industry.
Human-centered design methodology is really where you start with the end user in mind.
Spending time solving that problem that's bigger than yourself.
The Big Tech Show is brought to you by the African FinTech Foundry and Accelerate TV, powered by Access Bank.
Hi guys, it's Benjamin Dada here, and this is the Big Tech Show.
And I think I've seen a lot of nice apps, you understand? But of course, at the moment, I don't think there's any app that is better than the Access Bank Access More app. I mean, not because there's a kind of relationship with Access Bank, but the thinking, the technology, the engineering, you understand, the experience behind it. It's just something that we probably spend the best of time to look at. The biggest opportunity in Nigeria is still something that we've not even discovered.
True.
So we see the likes of Paystack, with about $200 million investment.
So at the AI Startup Lab, Yaba will bring ideas to life by embedding the capability of AI with world-class business mindset. And in doing that, will make serious impact socioeconomically. And indeed, the prediction that by 2030, AI will have added $16 trillion US to world economy. A share of that can be in Nigeria. And that is our dream, and that is our passion. Thank you.
We're in a very, very unique position in Nigeria right now from a technology perspective.
Okay.
You know, I was saying earlier on in a different talk that, we say we're in the fourth industrial revolution right now, or the tail end of the fourth industrial revolution. And if you look at Africa as a whole, what happened to us in the first, second, and third industrial revolution? Cake. In terms of talent. So when we talk about baking a bigger cake, what we're talking about is increasing that talent pool. Yeah. So that means that, organizations that are really serious about digitalization, have to not just think about themselves. They have to think about the wider society. You have to basically produce and train more than you need. So for us really in FinTech NGR, that's FinTech Nigeria, our role is to grow a bigger ecosystem that collaborates and promotes, that FinTech industry within the country.
Looking at the country, the continent, and having the opportunity to experience payments in the UK especially, felt that perhaps Nigeria deserved better. So I started thinking about this whole idea of retail payments. I'm an engineer by training, never done banking, never done payments. But I could tell by going to the bank, then standing in the queue, getting tally numbers, queuing up to get cash, going home, taking the risk of being robbed. I just felt there was a better way to do this. And that is where the idea to start InterSwitch came from. If you really want to solve a problem, you have solved the problem for individuals. Understand individuals and deal with it. There should be that crop of people who still believe in the power of technology. You don't have to wake up one day to realize that the generation of people like also went to school and studied engineering don't exist anymore. Everybody wants to be a musician, everybody wants to be a social influencer, because that is what they see. But somehow, if you want to solve real problems, technology is something you cannot ignore.
Part of my founding team included people I met in the university also. Yes. But one of the mistakes that people also make is not having enough industry experience before a startup.
Yes.
I reasoned to myself that, I've been an entrepreneur, and most entrepreneurs have always historically been entrepreneurs, right? I reasoned to myself then that if you want to enter an industry that is quite matured, like has an age, you need to get up to the state of the art. Getting to state of the art means that you should work in a place or at least learn the state of the art, right? So, and I'm looking around to some of our favorite startups that are doing quite well, and most of them are not they are all experienced guys before they started. However, in terms of providing financial services, the central bank has licensed fintechs to provide financial services, either payment agency, switching, etc.
Yes.
So first of all, that fundamental difference means that there's a subset of financial services that fintechs can never touch unless you're a bank. Ability to take deposits and ability to give loans. So because ultimately every payment that you do as a fintech is going to be stored eventually as money, it means that a fintech needs a bank.
Yes.
And that is one of the first points of cooperation.
Yes.
Every fintech is an interesting client for every bank.
Yes.
In fact, some of the biggest clients that banks have today are fintechs. So that's one major point of collaboration that is not going to end.
Today, so let's take a look at it. Today, if I wanted to start a business, I will not even go and look for an office. I will start my business now.
Yes.
I don't need to look for an office because the most important people is my customers, and my customers don't even want to come to my office at all. They want to access my products and services. So my new office is actually my website, my web front, my Instagram page. That's what people do. Small businesses are the biggest employer of labor in developed economies, not government.
Yeah.
And so we need, and we have 40 million small businesses that are somewhat excluded because they don't have access to services that make them sustainable, access that enables them to employ more people, right? To be more productive, right? As people change, lifestyles change, as people's mode of accessing services change, we must be able to be responsive to that and change that. So today, it's mobile. Tomorrow, it's going to be a different device. It could be Internet of Things. It could be, wearables. And I may be wearables, exactly. And I believe if you watch, I can't remember what that name of Arnold Schwarzenegger again. I can't remember it again. But
Terminator.
Not Terminator. I think it's the one where.
Good morning, everyone. How are you doing? Thank you for joining us at the fourth edition. We're at the fourth edition of Women in Tech. It is a lovely, I think we're having like a really lovely weather here in Lagos. You know the drill. If you've been with us for so long, my name is Oyintokoni Abasa, and I work at the Africa FinTech Foundry in the Action Incubation team. And you're literally joining us at the fourth edition of the Women in Tech Fireside Chat, and we're very, 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 very excited to have you guys join us on here. So, just quick run through. Let me know where you're joining. We're hosting live in Lagos, Victoria Island to be exact. Just let me know where you're joining. Let me know how your day is going. What's the weather looking like? Whether you're in ETC, whether you're in London, whether you're in US, whether you're in Ibadan, wherever it is that you are. Just let me know exactly where you are and just put it up in the chat section. I'm coming there to check. Just let me know where you guys are joining from. We're starting momentarily. I'm going to run you guys through just a few housekeeping rules, and then we'll kick off with the welcome speech, with a welcome address, and then we'll kick off. We have like wonderful line of speakers for you guys here to meet, to connect with, to learn from, and we're so excited that they've honored our invites. We're so excited to have them here, and I think a few of them are already on the call as is. Right. I have someone saying they're joining from Lagos. I have a Jeremy saying he's joining from Abuja. How's the weather in Abuja, Jeremy? I literally just left Abuja yesterday. Was there for a conference and it was really, really nice on renewable energy. I have Rose Joseph from England. How is the weather in England? I know England, it's raining 1 minute and the next minute is sunny. So how is it there? Hello, Joshua from Katsina. Let me know how it is. How's the weather there? Wonderful. Hi, Chisom from Benin Republic. Lovely to meet you. Meet you anyway. Oh, rainy. All through the night, still cloudy. Oh, that's nice. I missed that weather. Would have been nice. It was really hot when I was in Abuja anyway. I have Joda, who is joining from Zambia. Hello, Joda, joining from Zambia. How's the weather in Zambia? It's really nice to have all of you guys on here. I have Abiola, who's from Lagos with me here. Yeah, weather is actually cool. That's cool. Hi, Lushala in the UK. Well, that is quite hot this morning. Oh, that's nice. All right. I'm still gonna come to the chat, and because I really like to, interact in the chat section. Just it gives me it's a different vibe. from what happens online here, because like we have like our own community, like we all have comments where, sometimes speakers jump on the chats and they're saying things and asking questions. So like I love the chat section. I'm just gonna kick off straight away to the welcome address. The welcome address is gonna be given by none other than Abiodun Vito. She is, one of the women in W and an amazing, amazing, amazing woman. Thank you so much for being a friend of AFF, friend of Access. As well, she's an Access in the W community. I think I should check them out on social media. They're doing really, really wonderful work for the women entrepreneur and W fireside chats that they usually host regularly. I think I should check their social media. They do really lovely work as well. So thank you so much for joining, and I'll hand over to you for the welcome address.
All right. Thank you, Oyintokoni. Thank you so much, and good morning to all the wonderful ladies online. I can see Rose Finn of MasterCard. Good morning. Good morning. I can see Yvonne Adiolu. I can see all of you. Thank you so much for joining. And AFF, I can't say enough thank you for having me to give this opening address. Sometimes when you are asked to do that and you are the one always asking someone to do that for you, then you begin to wonder, okay, what is it they say? And now coming to women in tech. So good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests and esteemed speakers. I can see all of you. I can see all the greetings from all over the country and all the remarkable women present here today. I'm actually very delighted to welcome you all to the 4th edition, yes, the 4.0 edition of the AFL Women in Tech Conference. So for us in Access Bank, innovation is the hallmark of all the values and offerings, and as such, this conference serves as a powerful platform where we actually foster collaboration and growth. It is truly very inspiring to see so many passionate and driven individuals within the tech sector gathered here to discuss such a critical issue. I believe that this theme for today's conference, which is overcoming, the gap of funding, we can't shy away from it. There is gap in funding, is very timely and is crucial, particularly for women who constitute about 50% of the global population. So every day we are seeing more women emerge within the tech sector, founders, CTOs, and we cannot overemphasize the inestimable value that they bring to their companies as well as the economy. For example, we have seen the likes of Damilola Olokesusi, who is the short last lady, Biggie Vest. We see Odrayo Iweniyi, Ifedro Simieti, our economy, just to mention a few, and a lot of you online here doing marvelous things within this tech space, yeah? And you're actually making giant strides within that tech space, I must say that. But yet we also need to recognize the challenges that we faced by as women, female tech founders, and other tech professionals while trying to access the funding need to scale up and, the startups and the big ideas that we have in our minds. According to Britta Bridges' Beyond the Noise report, only 10% of Nigerian female founder startups secure funding between 2019 to 2023. And the entirety is just about $40 million over a 5-year period. So we can't shy away from the fact that there is a funding gap. To help us navigate these discussions and explore practical solutions, of course, we have the distinguished lineup of industry experts with diverse experience in leadership, investment, and innovation. In fact, I had to Google up a lot of names I saw, and I'm like, wow, I just have to stay in on this, get as much knowledge as I can, and also learn. So from our keynote speaker, of course, Rosalind from MasterCard Foundation, to our guest speakers, to different panelists all in here. They are all influencers in technology, finance, entrepreneurship, and they are set to have a dynamic and impactful day of discussion. So at Access Bank, we have always been at the forefront of championing women empowerment and enabling women to achieve their full potential. That's all I do. And our commitment is reflected in those policies and programs that we spearhead through the W initiative. Onye has spoken a little bit of what we do, and through W, we are able to address this multifaceted needs of women, spanning financial services, capacity building sessions, networking opportunities, and grants for female entrepreneurs, as the case may be. All of this is in our mission to drive inclusive growth. So I'm very confident that today will be a day of learning, collaboration, and inspiration. And of course, let's make the most of it as we explore solutions that will help us work together to bridge funding gaps and create a more inclusive tech ecosystem. Thank you so much and welcome to this transformative conference. If I were you, I would advise you get your writing pad, your pen, and take as much note as you can. Of course, follow every of these speakers on their social media handles and learn more about what they're doing so that you can, take as much as you can from them. Thank you and welcome. Oyi, thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you, Abiodun. You literally set the pace for this event, set the pace for the conversation. Thank you so much. I want to get to the chat section, guys. I want to get your thoughts on everything that we said, how the conversation has been kick-started. I want to know what you guys are saying, what your thoughts exactly are you looking forward to. We have really, really amazing speakers here lined up today. Particularly the next speaker is giving the keynote address. She is a very renowned player in this space. She's the country director of MasterCard Nigeria, and I think it is extremely important that we actually have, whether it's your notes on your phone or your notepad and your pen and you're taking notes, it's so good that you're going to LinkedIn to connect with people, connect with them as well. I'd also suggest that you put your LinkedIn, on the chat section so people can also connect with you. I think this is also one of the reasons why, we actually picked this particular theme. We realized that when we did a survey, not survey per se, or when we followed the trend year on year, and found out that there's actually a reduction in funding in the ecosystem. It's reduced massive from what it was in 2020, when we're getting almost trillions, in dollars, to now we're getting billions in dollars in terms of investment. And I've seen businesses also fold up even after getting that investment. And I think it's also important that, as we're actually having this conversation of bridging the gap, of, not just discussing how exactly to raise finance as, women in business, or whether you're a man in business, or, you're whichever role that you're in your business. I think it's also important that we also have those sets of skills that is good to push and manage the business. So we're thinking longevity, we're thinking, scaling, we're thinking growth, we're thinking, what that exit plan is for our business, what the exit strategy for our businesses. But before we kick off to welcome address, before we kick off to the keynote address, sorry, I just want to do a brief intro to those of you who are not too familiar with Africa FinTech Foundry. So we're an innovation hub started out by Access Bank. We're external innovators, and what we do is we actually work on a lot of innovations. We partner with different organizations. We run programs such as Women in Tech, Ecosystem Roundtable that we did earlier in the year, and we're doing in December. So please look out for your emails. Check your emails for for us. We'll be reaching out to you to register and to join us as well. And we do a bunch of activities and programs. I think right now we're actually doing a call to companies who are in the sustainable space to come and work with us in regards to whether you're looking for seed funding, you're looking for loan, you're looking for capacity building. So we're running a program for about 6 months, but the program will run for an entirety of 3 years roughly. And the idea really is to provide that finance for businesses, for early stage businesses, for mature businesses, for innovators that are looking to change the environment, whether you're in climate, recycling, waste management, in gender, whichever way. But we're going to put the link also on the chat section so that everybody can go in and just get more information about it. So I'm going to kick off straight now to the next speaker. Thank you so much, Rosie, for giving us your time. We really, really admire all the work that you're doing. Thank you so much for, just giving us that time. So I'm going to hand over to you next.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great. First of all, let me say all of the amazing work that Access Bank is doing. I have to come and open an account and ask all my friends to do the same. Congratulations to Access Bank for this wonderful initiative. Good morning, everyone, distinguished guests, all of the founders here, investors, I'm sure there are some accelerators, and just, fellow tech enthusiasts. It's really great to be here today. This is the 4th edition of the Women in Tech Conference, and that in itself is amazing to be able to keep this platform going for a number of years. I've just got to say a huge congratulations to the African FinTech Foundry for putting this event together. And thank you for inviting me to share some thoughts. I definitely don't have all of the answers to this huge theme that you put in front of us today, overcoming the funding gap. It's a big topic. It's a real conversation that needs to be had. It's an issue that has plagued women for many, many years, and I'm glad you're taking the bull by its horns and putting this conversation out there. So hopefully I can share some thoughts and actually engage in a conversation with all of you, because I think there are over 100 people listening in right now. And I know you all have some solutions and some ideas. So hopefully we'll be able to, interact on that as well. But before diving into this topic, I just wanted to ask, have any of you ever, walked into a meeting, you're chairing, you're the boss of that meeting, you're full of confidence, you have a wonderful presentation that you've done, and at the end someone asks, oh, good job, but where is your boss? Have any of you had this kind of experience? Just, click on the raise hand button if this has been something you've ever had where you are in charge, but they're expecting to see somebody else. They're expecting to find some man who is, playing the role of the boss. Anybody had that experience? Cool, I see a few hands up. This is exactly a situation that I have been in for many, many, many points in my career. And it's the beginnings of what manifests into this huge issue of there being a funding gap between men. Let's start this conversation by focusing on something that's really important, which is the fact that for many of us here in Africa and many African economies, women are actually the backbone. And this statement cannot be overemphasized. There's a report from the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor. It's a report from 2017, but it shows that 26% of the female adult population in sub-Saharan Africa engages in entrepreneurship. That is pretty much 1 in 4 women starting or managing a business. That's a huge deal. And if you compare it to Europe, for example, where the rate is about 6%, it shows the magnitude of the role that women play in shaping Africa's continent. But this is where the challenge begins. There's this huge entrepreneurial spirit that women have and this excitement to grow that. But there's a staggering gap that exists when it comes to funding between men and women. It currently stands around $42 billion, depending on which research you're looking at. And it's across many value chains. But think about that for a moment. $42 billion is the funding gap when the population of men to women is about the same, right? And these are women who are leading businesses, they're generating jobs, they're transforming industries, but they're struggling to access capital, and it's making it very difficult for them to go and to thrive. So this is a real significant roadblock to growth. And we know that when women succeed, communities prosper. There's so much research that points to the fact that if you invest in women, 90% of their income goes into the education, the health, nutrition of their families and their communities. When you compare this to men, it's just about 40%. So when women have access to funding, have access to power, are economically engaged, it filters to the whole society, it filters to the economy. Yet, only 1% of global venture capital funding is going towards women. So this really should be a wake-up call for all of us and something we need to be fully invested in doing something about. So my goal today is not just to highlight the gaps. I want us to explore solutions and examine some of the root causes that exist, because making a change in this space, it will not happen overnight, but it has to start from somewhere. And I think conversations like this are a great step in moving us forward. So when we talk about the funding gap, we keep hearing about it all the time. What are we really saying? It's really just the unequal access to financing between male and female entrepreneurs. And this is even more stark in sectors like technology, where I'm assuming a lot of you are actually spending a lot of your efforts and a lot of your energy. And this gap exists despite the fact that women have the same talent. They're just as innovative. And the growth potential is there, right? But they're only receiving a fraction of what's available with regards to investment capital. And there are many reasons for this. So I think it's important at a starting point for us to think through what some of these reasons are. And then we can go to what can be done about those reasons. And I think the first big reason for this challenge we have, this gender gap, the funding gap, is just a bias that exists and has existed for centuries. Unfortunately, the reality is that many of these investments often have unconscious biases towards women, and they hold stereotypes about women's capabilities. And this can be the case when it's a man doing the investment, and it can also be the same case when it's a woman, right? So these stereotypes do exist, and questions around women's leadership styles, women's risk tolerance are always raised when it comes to whether or not we should invest in them for funding. So this results in a lot of women-led businesses being undervalued or entirely overlooked. There are many women who cannot even begin to get into a room to have conversations around raising funding. And one piece of statistic which is really interesting is the fact that male-led startups are often funded based on their potential. So based on what the future prospects looks like. Women-led startups, on the other hand, they're scrutinized for their current performance and are questioned on why they're not doing things today, not for what they could be doing in the future. So this is a big double standard that women face. And what's even more surprising is the fact that statistics show that women-owned businesses are growing at a faster rate than those owned by men. So imagine the innovation, the impact, the wealth that could be unleashed if women had access to financial resources at the same level that men do. Another big risk or challenge that is faced is really the lack of representation in decision making. If you look at the investment community, it is still heavily male dominated. It's an all boys club. And this culture leaves women out of critical funding situations. You may find investors consciously or not favoring male founders because it's who they're used to, it's who that normally walks through the door, right? And there was a Harvard Business Review study that actually revealed something that was quite telling, that men, venture capitalists tend to ask men what we call promotion questions focused on their growth and potential. And women are asked what they call prevention questions. And these are all about minimizing risk. So for men, it's how can you do more? How can you scale faster? And for women, it's how do you prevent these issues from having or these mistakes from occurring? Again, another double standard that women have to face. A big third issue that exists, it's really limited networking opportunities that exist for women. In the world of venture capital, relationships are everything. Decisions are sometimes made before your pitch is even heard. But women have fewer opportunities to build these critical relationships with investors, and that directly limits their access to funding. There's also the issue of just being fully excluded from some of these networks, right? A lot of these investment deals are happening informally. It's, in dinners, it's over golf games, it's in private circles that women simply just aren't. If I was to ask any of you here, how many of you play golf? Not because you necessarily like the game, but it's an avenue to meet people in power who have the ability to make funding decisions that will help your business grow. Do you think we're going to see about 50% of your hands go up? Probably not. We are not actively putting ourselves in circles and in the rooms where men are having these informal decisions, which can actually lead to formal decisions to invest in somebody's business. So how do we stop excluding ourselves from some of these networks? It's a very important point that we need to discuss as well. Another major hurdle, lack of mentorship and role models, right? Many women in tech struggle to find mentors or role models. There's simply not enough women who have done transformational things in tech. We're seeing it happening now. There are quite a few that are coming up, but it's still much fewer than what we're seeing men do. So the mentorship and the role models that are there for women to look up to is not necessarily there. And what this does is that it affects the confidence and credibility of women. If you're not seeing a lot of people who are trailblazing in this space and raising significant funding to grow and scale their businesses, it limits your belief that you can do it, right? So the tech industry, it's still largely male dominated, especially at the executive level. And because of the unavailability of senior leaders who are women to mentor young people, this sort of results in parts of these funding gaps that we see. We can't also shy away from the fact that balancing work and family life will often lead a lot of women being comfortable with where their businesses have grown to. And it limits our ambition to want to scale and become the next unicorn, for example. In many parts of the world, including Africa, women are still expected to take on the bulk of caregiving activities. This expectation creates an additional layer of complexity when you're running a business, and it can hinder your growth in a way that will not necessarily be the case for men. Personally, I am married. I've got 3 kids, right? And all of these 3 kids are under the age of 10. And every time I have to travel for work, I'm actually in Accra right now. My kids are in Lagos, Nigeria. And every time I'm making some of these decisions, even if it's a short trip, I have to think of so many things to put in place to make sure that they're fine when I leave. When my husband has to do the same thing, he kind of just feels like things will happen and things will be okay, right? So are there times when I will forgo a trip? I will forgo an opportunity that will help me grow in my career, that will help me expand, just so that I can support the family end? Yes. And that's a true reality for women, and we can't shy away from that as well. Issue number probably 5 or 6, I've talked about a few right now, is valuation of women's businesses. This is a big issue because for a lot of women, our businesses are undervalued compared to male-led businesses. And what's actually sad is that when women are valuing their own business, they tend to undervalue themselves in a way that men don't, right? We actually undervalue ourselves more than men do. And that in itself is a mindset that needs to be completely shaken and completely overturned, right? So, and this disparity means that even when women succeed in raising funds, they're raising lower amounts than their men counterparts are raising. And part of the reason, even though sometimes we shoot ourselves in the foot, the other part is that there's also a lack of comparable data for their performance. It's kind of like a chicken and an egg issue because we're not investing enough in women businesses. So that makes it difficult for there to be enough of their performance to showcase for other investors to be comfortable investing in women. So this chicken and egg issue will continue to happen if we don't step out of our comfort zone and get comfortable raising funding, right? And raising significant amounts and being comfortable in our own skin to value ourselves for what we're really worth, right? And part of this is also because women tend to be risk averse. I think that's, by our nature, something that happens more with women for men rather than men. There's a fear of failure that women have. There's a lot of research that has shown that when a job opportunity becomes available, right, somebody will put out a job description and they'll have, say, 10 criteria of things that you need to meet to be able to do that job. And what will typically happen is that a woman will look at all of those 10 and say, okay, I have to be able to tick all of these 10 outcomes. I need to be able to have gone to school for 15 years, like it's being asked. I need to be able to have worked somewhere for X number of years, et cetera, et cetera. And if you don't tick all of those boxes, there's a reluctance to apply for that job. Men, on the other hand, on average, they see 10, things they should take. They have ticked 6, and they're like, that puts me in a comfortable lead. This is a job that if I can do 6 out of 10, let me go and try my luck. Let me go and apply. That's the kind of zeal and energy that we need to bring as well. Sometimes taking risks, we might not be fully ready for something, but being more risk-oriented and unafraid of making some of these jumps. So this fear of failure also sets us back. And on top of that, it's because of a fear of rejection, which can also be very overwhelming. What's happened is if you've gone and tried to get funding the first time, you've been rejected, it's happened again the second time. What's going to happen? You're going to lose confidence and imposter syndrome will begin to set in and you're less likely to want to do it again and again, right? But this is where we need to be a lot more resilient as women and continue to push forward. So I know these are a lot of changes that a lot of challenges that I've raised that women face when it comes to raising funding. And there's many, many, many more. But what I want to point out is that these challenges, though they may seem overwhelming, they are not insurmountable. Many women before us have overcome these obstacles and they've achieved success against all of the odds. And I think if we all come together, from an investor perspective, a policy perspective, as the broader tech community, and challenge these stereotypes, there's a lot that we can do to overcome these challenges. So what are some of the things? I think it's important that I also lay out a few of the strategies that are important for overcoming this funding gap. And if you remember, the first issue I talked about was being able to build a strong network. This is key. And this is something that is in our control. We have to be intentional about building our own network, a strong network. I think people and women especially need to understand that networking is more than a handshake at an event or simply exchanging business cards. It requires a lot more intentionality to make it work. It's about building a web of resources, advisors, and support that can open doors to funding and into opportunities. I was lucky growing up when I went to college. I was able to join an organization called Sponsors for Educational Opportunity, or SEO. And what SEO did was that it looked at minority students in the US, and it gave us training and coaching on leadership skills, how you present yourself, as well as on networking. And this came in so valuably for me because whilst I was in college, I was invited to an event at a partner at Goldman Sachs, which is an investment bank in New York's house. And when I got in there, my usual self, which is actually very shy and very reserved, would have stood in a corner, found maybe one or two people I knew, had a conversation, and left at the first chance that I got. Having gotten this new approach to confidence and leadership and networking, I actually stood up and tried to find people that I didn't know, people I could have conversations with. And one of these people was a woman called Janet Hansen. Never heard of her, never seen her in my life. But I spoke to her. She told me a little bit about what she does. I got her contact information. And a few days later, I sent her an email talking about how excited I was about the work she was doing, etc. And I took a brave step of asking her if I could come and do an unpaid internship with her because she owned her own company, which was an investment firm. This lady, Janet Hansen, actually said yes. And I spent 4 weeks working with her. She actually ended up paying me, so it wasn't even an unpaid internship. But what was amazing about it was that when I was applying to business school at Harvard, she actually was an alum and wrote me a supporting letter, which was instrumental in me getting into Harvard, right? These little opportunities come up in our lives all the time. And it is so important to take advantage of them. You never know where the next person will come from that will be the one to provide you with significant funding or a lifeline that you didn't even know you needed. So it is important to make it a point to, attend conferences and networking events. It's so amazing to see so many women on this platform today, because that's exactly what this is, a networking opportunity. Do not also forget the power of online platforms. We take for granted social media and professional networking platforms like LinkedIn. These are tools that provide platforms to build relationships and can go a long way in enabling you to meet people who otherwise would not have been in your immediate circles. Another point is joining relevant associations and industry groups. I personally belong to an organization called Executive Women's Network in Ghana. And I can't tell you how many times it had helped open doors for me that didn't exist, right? This is similar to WIMBIZ in Nigeria, for example. These associations matter. The next thing I would say is, as an entrepreneur, you have many interactions that might come off as informal, right? But some of these interactions are great opportunities to open doors and to raise funding that you wouldn't have known. So you always have to be prepared with a compelling pitch about your company, about your enterprise at your fingertips. You should be able to quickly highlight your unique value proposition, demonstrate your knowledge on who you're targeting for your business, understand market trends and competitors, and also be able to position who you are so that it resonates with investors. Even be able to talk about how you plan to grow and scale your business into the future, talking about your team and the expertise that they have to help you grow. You might think it's an informal conversation, it's just an elevator ride you're taking with somebody and they're asking you, hey, so what do you do? Seize these opportunities and make it work for you in a way where it will open doors and give you access to networks that you didn't even know existed, right? We also can't underestimate the advantage of having mentors. Do not take mentorship for granted. No entrepreneur succeeds alone. So mentorship is absolutely invaluable. If you don't have a mentor in the space you're working in, find one. But I am talking about mentorship relationships that are not transactional. This should be someone who's really invested and interested in seeing you succeed and willing to open doors for you. I think one other point is the fact that women forget sometimes, how many opportunities for funding exist. Sometimes we look at venture capital as the only opportunity for us. But there's so many other platforms. And so exploring these lending platforms, and sometimes starting from even our financial institutions, even our banks, to get a loan, etc., will be a key first step to get you ready for the next big thing when a venture capitalist comes knocking on your door. So at the Mastercard Foundation, for example, we have a partnership with one of the banks to provide single-digit interest rates for predominantly women. This is an opportunity, right, for you to raise capital at a very low interest rate that will enable you catalyze and scale your business much quickly. The foundation also has a fund that we call the Africa Growth Fund. And this is a $200 million impact investment initiative. And the goal of this fund is really to close the funding gap that exists for women. So we are focused predominantly on women. A lot of these opportunities exist. You just need to find them and be brave enough to apply for them, right? And I think that's going to go a long way in helping close the funding gap. And there are a lot of other development organizations that are doing similar things to what the foundation is doing. And for each and every one of us, I think we all need to become advocates for change. It's so important to raise awareness and speak openly about these challenges that exist, right? This is why I was excited to be here today to talk about some of these challenges. The more we talk about it, the more people understand that change needs to happen and things need to be done. Policies need to be raised that will promote more gender equality. So we can't shy away from having these conversations. We also need to support women-led initiatives. There's so many of them that are occurring in Ghana, in Nigeria, across West Africa. What are we doing in our own space to encourage organizations and initiatives that empower women entrepreneurs? And lastly, I would say that each and every one of us in this room, on this Zoom call today, are role models for someone else to look up to. What are you doing about sharing your journey, sharing your story, sharing your challenges to others, to inspire others, and to help them pursue their entrepreneurial dreams? I think your success, if you realize that your success can motivate others and push them through their challenges, we will do more about opening up and sharing what we're going through and how we can help others also thrive. So I hope that by employing some of these strategies, women entrepreneurs can really begin to increase their chances of securing funding and achieving their business goals. But I think the key is persistence and resilience. Do not give up. Even when the road gets tough, even when you hear no 9 times, it's probably that 10th time that the door will open and things will start to happen for you and the breakthrough will happen. And the road will always get tough. That's the nature of the business we're in. Tech is not easy. But remember that you're not just building a business, you're also challenging norms, you're breaking barriers, and you're creating a legacy for future women entrepreneurs. And it's so important to shake off that fear that we have, believe in your vision, and trust your abilities. The reason you started the business and the excitement you have for it, just realize that if you go after the funding, you can make it a reality. So I want to just conclude by saying that, look, for each one of us here, whether you're entrepreneurs, investors, accelerators, or tech enthusiasts, we all have a role to play, and together we have the power to create a great ecosystem that not only supports female founders, but champions their success at every stage of their journey. And I'm very excited that we're having this conversation today. It's just, one of the steps that needs to be taken to ensure we overcome these barriers that have been outlined. I just want to say a huge thank you again to the African Foundry team. Really looking forward to hearing more from others. And back to you, Oyin.
Thank you so much, Richard. That was amazing. I was inspired. I think I'm going to read what someone just said now. Adjola says persistence plus resilience, so create that legacy. So thank you very much for giving us your time. I mean, I've taken a few key things from here. For me, the explore the solutions, understand, what the causes are that's creating, a lot of these gaps. And I think you've highlighted a couple of them. And I think it's so important in our ways also, in our little small fears, that we, hone our skill, not shy behind, or let ourselves be trampled on, just to hone our skill, hone ourselves, and, and basically learn more, put ourselves out there, connect with people. That much I picked up on. You connect with people, take up mentorship offers. And I think some of the things I'm putting here as well in my notes. I'm taking notes. I hope you guys are taking notes. I'm going to read what people are saying in the comment section, which I really, really love. I have someone saying taking mentorship seriously. That's Immaculate saying taking mentorship seriously and being persistent are my takeaway. Also presentation. Thank you so much, Rosie, for that. Really, really amazing stuff. We're kicking this up. Chisom says wonderful speech and insight, Madam Rosie. Taiwo says thank you very much, Mrs. Rosie Finn, for the presentation. I love the fact that you are thriving in your career and also prioritize family. Thank you, Taiwo. Wanafio says, thank you so much. This is really key. I have my notes full. Me too. I have my notes full as well. And guys, we have like, this is just, we're just starting, you know? Like we've got a lot more coming up. We've never got to the panel section. Like, you know, panel session is like a whole different question entirely. So we've got a lot more coming up. We're gonna go next. We have a special guest speaker who is speaking to us next, and I just want to see what you guys are saying in the comment section just before we get to the next speaker. I just want to keep reading more responses. Victoria says thank you for this insightful session. Akash says it was mind-blowing. Thank you so much, Rosie, for your time. I really appreciate. I'm gonna be calling on the next speaker. I think this is a wonderful question that we have here. How does one get a meaningful mentor? And I think this is a question that I would throw to Rosie and to, you know, just the all the speakers on the call as well. And I think we can put those responses on the chat section to, you know, any question that you have for Rosie as well, because she's still on the call. So you can put your questions and I'm sure she'll respond to those questions on the chat section. So Kenneth says, nice to see our men doing great things. Thank you so much, Kenneth, for that. And I'm calling our next speaker. And thank you so much for giving us your time, Ms. Suraya Ahmad. Thank you so much. She is the founding partner for Aduna Capital. Thank you so much for giving us your time. And I'll just hand over to you for your speech. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, Owen. Good morning, everyone. It's really amazing being part of this. Thank you, Africa FinTech Foundry, for the invite. I listened to Rosie, and even though I've never met Rosie, I feel like we literally prepared our sessions together because most of the points that I was going to talk about, she started to talk about them. So I would do what business people do. I will do a quick pivot and a turnaround. I like one of the things she said about when a woman is in the room and people start to ask who is her boss, right? I look at gender bias from a different lens. And the lens that I look at it is like every other type of bias, right? And I'm saying this because I'm a Muslim woman operating in an ecosystem, partly in Africa, partly in the UK, where just my name is actually enough to put people off. So that is one type of bias. There is also the age bias where, oh, you're a young person doing something or achieving something, and people just automatically think you're not good enough or do not know what you're doing. That's another type of bias. Then when you go to like sort of the greater type of bias that Black people face or that women face, whether they're Caucasian or Black. So I just look at the world in general as a place that tends to we like to work with people that are like us, that are a bit more like us, right? And while this is a big issue in the world that makes people to be either treated differently or disproportionately, I like to think about it in a way that, how do I actually present my value in a way or a form that allows me to get what I want from this particular group of people? And I think that is the perspective that I'll be taking this session from. It is the practicalities. It is the things that I have done, for example, that I think have worked for me, and maybe it will work for some of you. I also wanted to run a litmus test, right? Because I think gender bias is not particular to men. We tend to think it is men that are actually biased against women. So let me run this litmus test. A lot of us here have businesses, or you know, we've run businesses in one way or the other. Imagine you needed to fill a role, right? And then you have two candidates. each of those candidates have equal amount of experience in terms of qualifications. One of them has just had a baby maybe 6 months ago, and she has 2 other children, and of course she's a woman. The other one is a man that has a wife that had a baby 6 months ago and 2 other children. Be very honest with yourself. Who would you choose for that role? So I mean, I'm reading the responses in the chat. I'm going to give you guys a couple of minutes to actually put something down. Who would you choose for that role? Exactly. So, and I think one of the things I've had to do in my journey is put it in my undertone at the back of my mind that choosing the woman does not mean the job is not going to get done well. And it is such an undertone in the sense that as business people, even as business women, we tend to think about our businesses first before we think about whether this person is a woman like me or I should help her. So like before we put on the charity cap, we think about the commercial side of things first. And that is how everybody thinks. So the first thing I want to say is nobody's doing you a favor by investing in you. So let's start from there. Nobody's doing you a favor. There is data, I think BCG did a research recently, and they realized that women-owned businesses actually return 35% more on investment than all-male teams. I mean, that is incredible, but it defies logic in the sense that if women-owned businesses are returning this amount of ROI to investors, why are we still not getting investments, right? So that's also something that we have to address. Clearly, there is a mismatch somewhere, either a mismatch in the value that we're pitching to investors or a mismatch in how we look at the things that make us different. I wouldn't call them disadvantages. I would call them things that make us different. So let's take it one step at a time. Let's talk about networking first. Of course, men have a lot more time to network, a lot more leeway, and they can relate to people that they're networking with very easily, like fellow men, right? And then on the other hand, for women, it's like joining a party where there's a secret handshake. Everybody else knows that handshake, but you don't know it. Automatically, you're going to be treated like an outsider, right? So what do you do to actually sort of mitigate that thing of being seen as an outsider? I look at it strictly from a benefit perspective, right? And I think what I've noticed is the rooms that I'm able to enter now, the places that I'm able to do things, all of those biases that sort of circulate me the first time you see me, the preconception that you have about me, it starts to disappear. The more I push that value proposition, it starts to disappear. So I ask myself a couple of questions whenever I am targeting somebody or I'm targeting a particular organization, or I'm trying to network with that person. The sort of questions that I ask myself is, why should I meet this person? Okay, why do I want to meet them? What is my objective? But the more important question is, why would this person want to meet you? People are really busy. People have things to do. So why would they want to meet you if you want to meet them? What are you bringing to the table that is of benefit to this person? And so now I am actually blurring whether they're a man or a woman or whatever, because from that litmus test, we've both realized that we tend to think in a similar way from a commercial perspective, right? So I am blurring the gender thing right now and focusing on what is achievable, that is mutual benefit. Now, whatever it is that I want to bring to this person, how does it align with their personal objectives? And trust me, I do this exercise for every single person I am meeting. And yes, I try not to meet a lot of people because I cannot do a lot of this. So I only meet people that I absolutely need to meet, right? And then how do you actually pitch this value in a way that comes across very clearly that this is what you're trying to bring forward? And then what is the best way to connect to this person? Now, I don't know, I can send you guys these questions later if you want them, But really, I sit down to do this analysis for every individual I am meeting. And then I'll take the last part. What is the best way to connect to this person? Now, whether the person you're connecting with is a man or a woman, there's a tendency that the first time you meet somebody, they're going to be a bit, yeah, hello, hi, I don't know you, because really they do not know you, right? So I try to form a bridge before I meet anybody physically. Before I go to that event to say, oh, hi, my name is Soraya, this is what I do, I try to form a bridge. And that bridge is look for a warm intro. So I know Rosie has talked about LinkedIn, and I cannot overemphasize the importance of going on your LinkedIn, checking that person's profile, and actually seeing who are the mutual friends that you have, right? So can you ask one of your mutual friends to do a warm intro to that person? Now, if that mutual friend does a warm intro to that person, never ask for something instantly. Connect with the person, tell them about what you're doing, then find a meeting point. If the person is going for an event or whatever, you can say, I can see you're going for this event. I'm going to be there as well. I would love to say hi, and leave it there. So then when you meet this person, there is still a chance for you to form a connection before you start to ask for anything. And data shows that majority of investments happen due to network. The deal flow sources are mostly network-based. So you really have to crack your way to networking with people. Okay, so then you meet this person, form a connection, and see how you can take that forward. This person could become your advocate. They could become people that introduce you to other people, just like the example that Rosie gave us. But you really have to think through what is in it for that person before you try to meet them. So that's, for me, that's sort of on the networking side. But there is also another, and now I'm actually beginning to forget my points a little bit. As I said, I'm trying to skip some of the things that Rosie has already talked about. Okay, so the next thing is, how do you make a perceived weakness, okay, become a strength? I was once on a government committee for implementing an ecosystem policy. I think I was 8 months pregnant, and like they were creating subcommittees, and somebody said I should head a subcommittee, and a man literally left what he was doing, went to the DG's office to say, I don't think Soraya can do this. She's 8 months pregnant. She will not be able to deliver on this project. Do not make her the subcommittee head. And the room full of men all agreed that I will not be able to deliver, and decided not to assign me as a subcommittee head. And trust me, on that project, all of the things that I delivered up until that point were more than any of those individual men had delivered. But it is a perceived bias. The same way that if you see a pregnant woman, even as a woman, you will think, oh, I don't want to stress this woman out. I don't want to give her more. It's very hard to see us for our capabilities. It is easier to see us for what we physically are. And for me, it is overcoming this stereotype in a way that actually makes my capabilities come across. So I have 3 children. It's incredibly difficult for me to travel. I have to choose the places I go to. If I have 3 trips in a month, I can only go to 1. And that is the reality. But is that a limitation? I don't think it's a limitation. So every single investor I have met along the line for my fund, I make it obvious to them why this meeting is important, okay? So some of the things I say to them is, I have 3 children. One of them is 1. I have left all my children and the 1-year-old to be here today because this meeting is important, because you are important, because I am focused on achieving this particular objective. And it really speaks to the fact that being mothers and being women is not a disadvantage. It makes you hyper-focused. It makes you prioritize. And there is a saying that if you want something to be done really fast, give it to a busy person. And I like to use that. I am a busy person. I have a family. And for that reason, it means if you give me something, I will be hyper-focused and I will deliver it just in time. And I think we need to start looking at these things as strengths rather than weaknesses, as opportunities rather than barriers. You have a great opportunity to work with somebody that's hyper-focused, a great opportunity to work with somebody that has something at stake and wants to deliver. And so this is a great investment opportunity for you. So you can see how something that normally would make you feel, pull back, get on the inside and start thinking, you know what, I don't want to come to this person. I don't want him to think I have children and I cannot deliver, or that I'm pregnant and I cannot deliver. You then start to shape that thing as a strength, because it is actually what makes you who you are. So for me, those are the two ways that I've actually been able to mitigate, some of those perceived or preconceptions about being a woman, with making them look like strengths. And then when it comes to networking, women tend to network with the lowest person that cannot help them. Go a bit higher or somewhere in the middle, okay? So how I do it is, imagine you need something from the World Bank, and the World Bank president is gonna be somewhere, and you're like, you know what, let me go and meet the World Bank president. That's great. There's a likelihood that you cannot get anything from the World Bank president because it's too high up there, right? The layers that he would need to go through to help you achieve what you want to achieve is actually too much, and he's got too many people in his network. So I always say, network with the relevant decision makers. So my approach would be to look at the person that is the project lead at that level, and then I'll go through those set of questions that I just asked, and I'll try to connect just with that person, because A, they're a decision maker, they're high enough to be able to help me, but they're not too high in a way that makes it hard for me to reach them. So it has really been realistic in who you reach out to, how they can be able to help you, and yeah, if they're a decision maker or not. Sorry, I'm again looking at my notes because I'm trying to skip what Rosie has already said. Another thing is, averagely, founders that raise money actually pitch to at least 50 to 100 investors before they get a couple of yeses. Let's not be emotional about distance. It is commercial, it is commercial. Pitch a commercial value proposition, pitch return to investment, the same way that you would have chosen that man in that litmus test because in your head, you believe he would have delivered better. Not necessarily, I don't think a man would have delivered better. I think women have more to lose, so they deliver better. But you would have chosen the man because of that preconception. So then think about the person that you're going to pitch to, that you want to invest in you. What preconceptions would they have about you? How do you mitigate those particular preconceptions? So I'm actually a lot less emotional about gender bias than a lot of people. That's the truth. But I also think from an ecosystem perspective, we have a lot of work to do. So currently, the way deals are being sourced is mostly either through WhatsApp, somebody knows somebody and they introduce those things to you. And that is why we're taking a different approach. We want to meet people where they are at the very local level, using sort of a wide range of venture partners in, grassroots accelerators, local incubators, where women with their children tend to go and sit and work. Because networking is expensive. It's not every woman that can afford it. And that is a barrier in itself, right? So we try to get to the lowest level, and that forms majority of our deal sources as against the networking type of deal source. So I really think as an ecosystem, we have a lot of work to do in terms of how we map out accessibility. Not being able to access a way to access funding is of the most disadvantage to women than any other group of people. And then finally, I want to conclude by saying that I know that it is hard, right? It is harder for us to knock on those funding doors. But when we do knock on them and they open, let's make sure that they never close again. Thank you so much. And I really hope I've not been very repetitive. Rosie, you did an incredible work at summarizing a lot of what we're doing. So, but yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Soraya. But just before I let you go, we have a question here. Someone says, Women-led businesses outperform men-led businesses, but men-led businesses raise more funds in ticket size terms than women-led businesses. Could this be a function of the sort of businesses women-led businesses tend to be heavy on compared to men-led businesses? For instance, research shows that women-led businesses tend to be less capital intensive. Is this why women are raising less in ticket size on average compared to men-led businesses that tend to be more capital intensive? Does the statistics quoted control for type or sector of business?
I actually do not believe that it's because men-led businesses are more tech intensive. I am of the opinion that more deep tech businesses are less commercially viable. I mean, where I stand working with the Oxford Seed Fund, I have seen that a lot of companies that are deep tech tend to have less commercial viability, and most of the time would have to pivot, to be able to be able to be commercially viable. Having said that, a lot of the problems that Africa is facing are not tech problems. They are infrastructural problems. They are other type of problems that I think women are in better positions to solve. What is shooting us on the foot is how we negotiate. And I'll give you a typical example. I don't know, like 6 years ago, I was supposed to do a project with somebody. It was a subcontracting project. I asked him how much he was going to pay my team member, and he said, oh, we could pay 500K per team member or whatever. Then I went and asked my husband, and I said, this person wants to subcontract this project to me. How much do you think I should charge them? And he said, 10 million naira. I said, no, are you joking? How can I charge 10 million? He said, yes, charge him 10 million because it's worth that. And then I literally, I don't know the word to use, but I crippled back, like I just crippled back to the person and say 10 million. I said, no, 10 million is too much. Let's do 9. So I went from somebody willing to pay my team member 500,000 to then paying 9 million because men are shameless in asking. So be shameless when you're asking. Like I have learned to bill at the maximum I can potentially bill because that is what I believe my business is worth. And then we can start to negotiate down. So it is incredibly, and I'm gonna send you the name of a book for negotiation. I found it incredibly useful. Learn to negotiate as a woman. Women, we're always on the selling ourselves. Sorry, I'm just finding the name of the book. It's in my library. So women are always on the selling themselves because we think we're not worth what that person is paying, or somehow, like we just look at ourselves differently. Shamelessly negotiate for what you think you're worth. Okay, I'm gonna send the name of the book. It's called The Secrets of Power Negotiation. So, Owen, in response to the question, we're just not negotiating well enough. A man would probably negotiate 2 or 3 times that valuation because he is confident in what he's doing. He has confidently put across his value proposition, and he believes he can return to that investor more than what they're giving him. If you're a woman and you feel this way about what you're building, shamelessly negotiate for what you think you're worth.
Thank you so much, Soraya. I think that answers the question perfectly. And I think I actually have, and thank you for the book. I think I'm going to write that down as well, The Secrets of Power Negotiation by Roger Dawson. I think everyone should actually quickly have that written down very quickly. I'm going to respond just what people are saying in the comment section. Immaculate says, be shameless when asking. I always struggle to ask for high amounts. Just like you said, men are not shameless when asking for high amounts, and I think it's very important that we learn that too. And I'm going to just keep reading the chat section. You guys should just please put it on there. Let me know what your thoughts are. Someone says, this question has changed my perception of meeting people. Why this person should meet me? What value do I have to offer? This is from Loretta. What value do I have to offer to this person? What am I bringing to the table for this person? Thank you so much, Soraya. And I think, thank you so much. That's actually something that I've learned when networking, because I'm not going to lie, I'm actually poor with networking with people. I get their numbers, I get their contacts, and that's where it ends. There is no follow-up, reaching out, or now at least I've learned the steps. Just engage them and just continually engage with them before I even make my ask. At least make some form of friendship. And I think that goes a long way. So thank you so much, Soraya, for that. Really, really, so thank you. I think other people as well have some. Nosike is when at the negotiation table, think what a man will do and do times two. That's a good takeaway. That's a nice one. Thank you so much, Nosike. Let's keep going to the chat section really quickly. You guys should keep me, just keep engaging me. Which Celeste says, oh, don't worry, the recording will be available. Put it up on our YouTube platform. And the book is, I think she's already written it down, is The Power of Negotiation by Dawson. I think it's also in the chat as well. Jennifer says, shamelessly negotiate for what you think you are worth. Insightful. Thank you so much, Soraya. Thank you so much. And we're going to one of the next bit of this event, which is the panel session. And I'm going to be calling our moderator, who will be introducing our panelists, who will actually be setting the tone for the conversation. And I just want to thank all the speakers so far, really, for the wonderful nuggets they've been dropping, the wonderful insights. I have picked a note. I hope you guys are also picking. Hope you guys are taking notes, either on your phone or on your notepad. Hope you have something to drink to hydrate, because I have my own cup of tea. I have bottles of water beside me. And again, don't forget to follow us on our social media platforms. We've been dropping the links there to our IG, to our LinkedIn, and on our website. We tend to put blog posts on that kind of help businesses with what they should either follow on tech trends, or basically how they should shape their business and their structure. And we do run a plethora of different activities. One of them is I like the Akachi negotiation and my new name. I second that. And one of the activities that we have, we do host incubation programs. We do host acceleration programs in the for startups. We recently completed one for the EdTech. We're doing one for sustainable businesses. And we're going to put the link on the chat section as well. And it's very important that you guys join. And it's also a way, where we're actually looking for people who are making, strides in whatever space they are, in whatever part of sustainability they're playing in. I'll be introducing our moderator. And that's Nosike Ike. She's a business analyst and a thought strategist in AFF. And she'll be taking us, introducing the panelists and moderating the panel session. She'll basically be doing an introduction to our wonderful panelists. And trust me, we've got amazing lineups of panelists here as well. And we have them on the call. We have Oladura Oladipo from Tech4Dev. We have Yvonne from Indicina. We have Adeomi from Zek Consulting Africa. We have we have Jessica Basha. So we have a very, 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 very huge lineup of people, and you really want to hear from. And trust me, like, we've had a very nice setting of the tone so far, and you don't want to miss it. And then do not hesitate also to ask questions, either in the Q&A section or the chat sections. We're going to put that questions out there. We're going to get those responses really quickly. The moderator as well will also be keeping an eye out for those questions. So please engage us. And just engage us, and then we'll just keep the chat section live and interesting. I'm going to be handing over to Nosike of the call. Hi, Nosike.
Hi, Amma. Thank you so much. There's a lot that has been dropped. I feel like I'm in a class. Like, when you're like in networking section, an event, and then the person speaking, the people speaking are dropping so much, like, please calm down. And you're like, should I record on my phone? Okay, can I go and watch YouTube? There's a whole lot. I really love Rosa and her, like, we had tips on how you can, manage your business as a woman, how you also manage yourself. And then Soraya came with like practical, you guys, like, carry your notes. see Byron, I'm holding Byron already. There's a whole lot that's going to be dropping. And also, this session is recorded. All our sessions are recorded. You can go back on YouTube. I almost wish like we can like screenshots or video like little parts or like little tips. There's a whole lot. I really love how impactful our Women in Tech webinars always are. So let me just move straight in introducing our panels. We have a lot of beautiful faces. And just before I start, I have to give a shout out to the Africa FinTech Foundry team. We have so many beautiful women on this session right now. I mean, like, FF is really doing this thing with bringing like this powerful women. So everyone, please take your notes and jot this down. There's a lot that's going to be shared. And to just start introduction, we have Yvonne Johnson, who is the co-founder and CEO of Indocina, a leading AI infrastructure in fintech. She has a proven track record in driving impactful change through technology. Yvonne focuses on economic inclusion across Africa. She has an MBA from Kellogg's. School of Management, where she earned the spot on the Dean's List and received the Donald P. Jacobs International Scholarship. Next up, we have Adeolu Adeomi, a global Nigerian and lifelong Afro-optimist. She has a 25-year career spanning across 4 continents. With dual honors from Pennsylvania State University, she rose to the CEO of Alliance Nigeria, where she led mergers and acquisition and transformation across Africa. She grew Alliance African portfolio to nearly €500 million. At Zer Consulting Africa, she leverages her expertise to empower startups and social ventures. She also champions financial inclusion, gender equality, and inclusion through board positions and other advisory committee focused on social impact in Africa. Next, we have Teniola Adedeji, who is the co-founder and CEO of PharmaRun, a platform transforming healthcare access in Africa. She has a background in pharmacy and extensive experience at MedPlus and NAFDAC. She transitioned to healthcare from investment banking, where she advised corporations at Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, and Goldman Sachs. Next on our list is Ada Nduka Oyom, the founder and executive director of She Could Africa, a nonprofit powering over 62,000 African women and girls with STEM and digital skills across 20+ countries. She's also the CEO of Open Source Community Africa, which is focused on driving open source codes across development or tech development in Africa. Next, oh my God, the beautiful faces. We have Oladiwura Oladepo, the co-founder of Taltrix, a leading BPO company focused on talent development and which also addresses talent shortage in Africa. She's also the executive director and co-founder of Tech for Them, a non-profit focused on empowering Africans through digital skills and entrepreneurship. Through initiatives like Women Tech Success Program, she's committed to gender parity, aiming to empower 5 million women by 2030. Next, we have Dolapo Morgan, who is an investor at Venture Platform Fund, an early-stage Africa VC with notable investment in companies like Paystack and PiggyVest. She manages the entire investment process, including the sourcing, due diligence, and portfolio management. She also serves on the board of Termi and a board observer for Sunfire. Currently, Dolapo she's also a mentor at Google for Startup and Techster. Thank you everyone for joining. We also have Nelly Nkolisi, a South African product design engineer who holds a BSc from University of Witwatersrand and an MEng in mechanical engineering from the Central University of Technology. She has 8 years of experience across construction, biomedical engineering, and agricultural sector. She's co-founder of iMedTech, which is focused on enhancing access to breast prosthetics for cancer survivors. She launched Thola in 2021, a climate tech venture that automates biosecurity compliance for business in emerging markets. Lastly, we have Jess Anuna, who's the CEO of Clasher. She's the founder and CEO of Clasher, a technology company that facilitates cross-border commerce in Africa. She launched Clasher to help Africa consumers and businesses access global goods and services seamlessly. Clasher enables global merchants to sell in Africa while allowing African consumers to make payments using local currencies. So thank you everyone for joining in. I said it before, please carry your bio, carry your notes and jot. There's a lot that's going to be shared. I mean, you can go back and watch the session on YouTube, but as they drop, write it. Thank you. So we'll move on to our questions. Straight up, thank you everyone for joining. You look so beautiful in this panel. So to start us off, I'll be speaking to Ada. Hi, Ada. Thank you for joining. So we'll just go straight into the question. I mean, with She Could Africa, what inspired you to start, and how has the organization grown in terms of empowering women in tech?
Okay, thank you very much. And hi, everyone. This is such an amazing panel, and I am really honored to be sitting amongst these individuals. To answer your question, She Could Africa started out in 2016. I had just finished university. When I was in school, in uni, I was already doing a lot of things as regards community development, specifically for women, through the Google Developers Program. And while I was doing that, I had the opportunity to meet a number of women who were already doing amazing, but I realized that beyond our circle, beyond our network, these women were not known to the larger ecosystem. And I saw that as a challenge to want to do more for these women, right? There are women who are doing amazing things, but they don't have the platform to either share their work, their achievements. And then there are women outside these circles who are looking for inspiration, who are looking for mentors, who are looking for the push for them to come into tech. And that was how I decided to start She Could Africa. It started out as a regular publication, just writing about the stories of these women. And then over time, we got nudges from people who were saying, oh, I see the story you wrote about this woman. I want to connect with her. I want to be like this person. I want to do XYZ. I want to build XYZ applications. And then we moved into creating boot camps for women across different locations in Nigeria. And I would say from there, it just spiraled into a whole organization. There was the need for us to start creating actual programs for us to train these women. But at the core of everything, the main goal has, and it still is, to provide women with technical skills. Because for us, we're not just trying to build or bridge the gender gap. We're also trying to make sure that the women who are coming into this tech scene, they're able to speak up and stand up for themselves, saying that, I have XYZ skills, I'm not just getting this opportunity, or I'm not just filling a space. I have the technical skills to take up that space. And that was how She Could Africa started. That was how we continued to grow. And then over time, we were able to get membership and, activities in other countries, including Ghana, Kenya. And I would say from there, it has just grown into like so many other countries and into what She Could Africa is today.
I love how on this panel we have She Could, who does for any type of tech, really empowering women across. And there's Oladiwura, who is also she's the co-founder for Tech for Dev. I mean, the next question is to you. What was the idea? What inspired you to start Tech for Dev?
Okay. Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me loud and clear. Okay. So I would say that what led me to start Tech for Dev. So starting out is I do have a co-founder. My co-founder is Mil. And we sort of do this together. But what pretty much inspired us to start Tech for Dev was in 2014, right? Everybody remembers 2014, there was an Ebola crisis in Nigeria, and I was sitting with my dad. My dad is a professor of public health in Ibadan, and I remember having a side chat with him, and he was so worried, about how we could spread information to people like in different communities around how they could sanitize their hands, and how people could just stay safe from this impending epidemic, that was upon the country. And I remember then that myself and my co-founder back then just thought about, as two young people, what can we do, right? Nothing too much. Can we set up a website that can provide people information around, washing your hands, sanitizing, just providing people general information about Ebola and how to stay safe. And I remember back then that we created a website called stopebola.org. We worked with an organization called the Future Project. They're a nonprofit as well, affiliated with Red Media. And we pretty much launched that website. That website had almost, I think about 950,000 people visited the website, just basically trying to get information about Ebola. But that's not what is interesting. What was interesting was, before we got someone to build that website for us, it took almost 2 months. We literally were searching the ends of the earth, let's put it like that, in Nigeria, looking for a good talent that could support us to be able to build the website. And then eventually at that point was an eureka moment for us. We knew that we had a problem. We had a problem in Nigeria in terms of technology talent, and we were just looking out for how we could solve this problem, right? And we pretty much started out our digital education pillar, which is pretty much back then was focused on, you know, enabling young Africans or young Nigerians at that point in time with technology skills, quality technology skills, which means that if people wanted to be able to deliver on a service for an organization or even deliver a service for even just for the sake of it, right? They could do it and they could do it well. And that's how we started out. But afterwards, right, the next thing for us was pretty much, we saw how the people that it is that we had trained had then gone on to land jobs. And then the type of jobs that they were landing was quite interesting, because we then had a scenario. So I'll give you this story and I'll sort of try to wrap up so I don't take up too much time. There was a guy, I would not mention his name, in Akure back then, who we met at a filling station. He was a filling station attendant. And he saw one of the flyers of the program that it is that we were running back then called Codepreneur at the back of one of my colleagues' cars. And he said, "Oh, I'm interested in actually learning about this. Is there a way you can support me to learn?" And we said, "Yes, oh, join our program. It's ongoing at the moment." And Taiwo joins this program. From there, he actually lands he starts what they call it, got a university admission into cybersecurity in FUTA. And then from there, today, fast forward, it's been 5 years, right? Taiwo worked for a global tech company out of Nigeria in the UK. The money he's been able to make for himself, he's been able to use it to fend for himself, for his family, right? And for us, one of those things that, you know, we saw back then was we can actually create economic prosperity using these digital skills. People can help themselves, they can help their families, they can earn decently, and they could actually really bring themselves out of poverty. And that sort of spun us into a different direction entirely, beyond us just creating access to quality digital skills for young Africans or young Nigerians. It was more around then using technology as a tool to enable economic prosperity. And I would say that since 2016, that's pretty much what it is that we've done at Tech for Dev till now.
Thank you so much. I mean, it must have been very encouraging to have a success story, an actual success story of how impactful your program, your initiative had been. So to add that, like there are a lot of these programs that happen, and I'm sure there are people who would wonder how would the impact, how are the impacts measured, how is it assessed, how exactly, like, are there methods that are used to assess the impact of the summits on like women empowerment, or just generally, apart from we have success stories, but how do you think we can measure or even assess the impact?
So just to get that, is that a question for me?
Yes.
Okay, and if I get the question clearly, how do we measure the success of our program?
Yes.
Okay, so beyond just the numbers of the women who are participating, again, for us, it is the skills, the level of the skills it is that they have acquired from our different programs. We run different type of programs, but the main thing, depending on the type of program, I would just focus on our academic program where we are actually impacting them with the technical skills for them to build a career in technology. aside from the number of women who we've trained, one thing that we also try to look out for and we measure as success for the program is the women who are able to get employment opportunities. Many times it's a slow progress, right? And I'm really hoping that it's something that we get to discuss in this type of conversation. It's one thing for us to train these women, it's another thing for them to get employment opportunities, especially as entry level into the industry. Another thing that we look out for is the locations of where these women are coming from, right? A lot of our activities are primarily in Lagos, Nigeria, or in Nigeria, but then we also try as much as possible to make sure that we're getting participants from other countries. So we're looking at new countries that we're breaking into. Now, recently, we had a partnership with Google through the Grow Google program, and we had a lot of participants from South Africa. We were very surprised, but it's a huge milestone for us, and that was how we're able to break into the South African economy. And for that, that's like another success. Like now, women in South Africa are able to not just participate in our program, but also gain, the skills that are required, and then also help like evangelize about She Could Africa. So in summary, we're looking at countries that we're breaking into. We don't want to just have people think that it's a Nigeria thing. It's a Pan-African thing. We're looking at the number of women who are able to get job opportunities after the training, because then if you're not getting opportunities, it makes us feel like at the end of the day, there isn't a platform for you to actually practicalize what you have learned. So we're looking at job opportunities. And then another thing is that still in respect to job opportunities, we're looking at partners, so hiring partners. How many companies are actually willing to, put their money where I don't know how that saying goes, but basically just, go beyond saying, oh, we want to support, exactly, we want to support women, but you're actually willing and interested in working with these women in taking their skills, from theory to practical. So there's that as well. And then, like I said earlier, the number of women who were able to train at the end of the program. So those are things that we look out for as success.
Okay, thank you. I guess there are different ways in which impact can be measured and different ways in which it can be tracked. But the most important thing is your driving impacts. As we have stories, we'll have their success stories as well as, just the experience, just getting women, just getting girls to see that this is possible. There are people in your field. It's one thing to see, it's one thing to hear, but it's also important when you get to meet this, be in the same space. I mean, I remember being in uni, and then we had this program where we had people who come and speak to us. I think that was the first time they were doing it in school. And I remember sitting there and thinking, oh, I'd want to speak. I would want to be a speaker one day. It's almost like, okay, so what do I have to do to get to that stage? Do I have to be as good as I am? How good do I have to be at my work? What do I have to do? What degree, what courses, what do I have to learn? What do I have to know? So I mean, like, I moved forward from just school to, okay, this course, I have to do this, I have to do this course, I have to get a certification, so I have to read about these things, I have to subscribe to several Substack. I mean, even with my social media, even on Twitter, what people I'm following, what are they talking about? When I hear, oh, there's Tech Twitter, what are they sharing on Tech Twitter? What are they talking about? I mean, I'm following people like that. I'm even following you. I saw clips from the She Could Summit, and I'm like, it's because I'm following sort of people that I'm seeing these clips. So I mean, like just talking about impact. So we'll be moving on to funding options and talking about funding for a startup. And to Yvonne. Hi, Yvonne. Good morning, and thank you for joining us. So
good morning. Thanks for having me.
So just talking about Indocina and what's doing so far, what are some of the key milestones that helped secure investment for early stage or in the early stages?
It's a very good question. And I think I always tell people that when you think about, the question of funding, it also helps to try to understand the person at the other side of the table. I mean, when we talk about funding, there's different types of funding. There's broadly equity funding, there's debt funding, and sometimes it's grants, right? And when we talk about venture capital, it's equity funding. So they give you money and take equity in your business. But it's also helpful to understand, what a VC is, what they do, and whatnot. They've also gone ahead. They've also gone to somebody and raised money. And they've put this fund together. And the idea is that they can deploy this fund and generate a return. So it's helpful to understand that kind of pressure, so to speak, that they have, right? Because the more you're able to target your business in a way that helps them meet the goals that they've promised to their investor, your chances of success are higher. And so for me, broadly within Indocina and, the idea of kind of pitching to investors and making our case, There's different things, there's different data points, right? But there's broadly two things, right? And I know we touched about it earlier when we talk about, trying to improve our chances as female founders. One of it is just being able to demonstrate domain knowledge, right? Before I started in Decina, I had, I started my career as an engineer, as a software developer, and then moved into financial services. Initially, I was doing investment banking and then did kind of banking in Africa, right? Before I started in Decina. And so in whatever pitch and in whatever discussion, it is very important to be able to demonstrate that domain knowledge. And sometimes we take it for granted what you know, right? But being able to say that, look, I know this industry that I am in. For me, I know banking in Africa, and I'm also an engineer, right? So when I talk about fintech, I know what I'm talking about, right? And that's one important checkbox, right? Because at the end of the day, you're demonstrating that, look, you know what you're talking about. You have a good grasp of the problem and the solution that you're trying to pitch. And I think the second thing is, it's more of a hard metric, just being able to kind of secure customers, right? And they're different business models, right? Ideally paying customers, but, even just securing those customers to show and demonstrate that interest. One, it demonstrates the business model, which is part of what they're investing in. And the second thing is that it's also kind of a strong signal for kind of product market fit, right? So for me, that was kind of, those are the things that I kind of leaned on. Look, I know what I'm talking about. I've done this before. I have the domain knowledge. And by the way, here's also some kind of, early interest. And when you put all that together, you start to make a strong case for, why that check should be written for you.
I like how what you just said relates to what Soraya said with regards to connecting and networking. It's important to understand what you bring to the table. You're able to speak so much and so emphatically on what you're bringing in order to convince the other person. I mean, I guess this was like you have to know your stuff. You have to know your beans before you're able to say, please bring money. Please come and give me money, I guess. Yeah. And so thank you so much for that. Hi, Tenny. As the CEO of Famaron, what stage do you seek, or what stage do you think it's time to start seeking external funding? And how did you decide which funding option was best for your startup?
So I think it's essential to, first of all, establish what we like to call product market fit. So you have to have like some people at least who want to use your product or who have interest in your product before you start seeking funding. And like Yvonne said, understanding what VCs really want, they want return. So it's not like they're just dashing you money. So they kind of have to see some sort of traction and you believe in yourself. Nobody knows your business more than you, but then for you to be able to convince other people to also believe in you, they kind of need to see it, right? They can't just believe in whatever you have in your heart. One. Then I also feel that, it's important to do a bit of research to decide what type of funding you want to go after. For us, we leveraged our network a lot. So we talked to a lot of people, even your colleagues, your friends. You'll be surprised. Sometimes you always want to network upwards. You want to look for maybe somebody you're connecting with on LinkedIn, but you'll be surprised the wealth of knowledge you literally have at your fingertips. Like your friend who works in like a VC or even just like in finance who knows somebody else. So if you can leverage that type of knowledge, it also helps. Also, when you're starting businesses in like the really early stage, there are programs such as maybe African Founders Finance Factory, whereby you're able to leverage incubators. So you go to seminars like this, webinars, where you're able to, get nuggets of people who have done similar things and you don't necessarily have access to initially. So we did a lot of that, where we went for incubators, where we're able to have mentors of some sort, tell us exactly, explain the landscape, explain to us what VCs want, explain what type of fundings are available. And then I think it's also very important to decide what type of business you want. Today, there's a lot of news on Tech About whereby, somebody has raised billions of dollars and you're like, yes, me too, I want to go into that. But, your business at the core of it really might just be a very, very good traditional business where you're going to make steady income and, it's going to really literally be what you want and it's comfortable for you. You don't have to go into VC funding. You don't have to go after equity funding or debt just because, you want to make the headlines. And I think sometimes as well, there's this question they ask us a lot of times when you're trying to raise money, that is your startup VC backable? And which is what like Yvonne was also saying, are you able to, if they give you money today, are you able to deliver, 10x or whatever it is? Do you also want to be under that type of pressure? I know we say we should push ourselves as women, but at the same time, it's also good to also understand, what you want out of life. Everybody wants sort of different things at different stages. So I don't think, every business should literally be VC funded. There are other types of funding out there. There's debt. There's also just growing your business at a particular pace that you definitely make good money, right? But it's not going to be you raise $50 million on Tech About type of thing. So yeah.
I guess I understand it's important to know your level and start at your level. It's not a get rich quick scheme. It's something you have to build. It's something you have to learn. Again, I really hope everyone is noting the importance of networking. Network horizontally, network vertically, to network among your peers. At the same time, network among the people you admire. I really love how we had set like the stage or set the tone for the conversation with even our keynote speaker, because I still have to go back. It's important to know what you're bringing. And then when you're eyeing these people, when you're saying, okay, I want to get fund, we have MasterCard. We have someone from MasterCard here on the panel. This is an opportunity to network. What do you know you're bringing to the table? And at the same time, if you're a startup founder, there are startup founders here who have raised. You connect to Tenny. Hi, I loved what you said. So can I get more tips? Soraya mentioned a book, and then you read the book, have tips, and you can just hit up. This is really like practical steps in which you can start your networking, start getting access to what you're looking for, be it funds, be it advice for your business, be even advice for your career. I really hope everyone is, paying attention to what we're dropping, what we're saying. At the same time, the people that are on the panel, people have been saying very impactful panel. I'm even so honored to be just like moderating this session. So hi, Adeolu. I think the next question would be for you. So given your expertise in strategy and leadership, what do you think are some of the overlooked funding options for startups at different stages of growth, particularly for women-led business?
Thank you for the question, Nosike, and it's been great to listen to everyone else. There's really been so many gems, and I'm taking notes myself. So never think that you're ever too old or too experienced to learn. Some of it has already been expressed here, right? So Rosie went through some of it. You might have heard her mention impact investing, because it's not just, many people think about equity, particularly from VC funds. Some of my fellow panelists had mentioned that there is pressure that comes from taking equity and particularly taking equity from a VC fund. And there's also debt, right? But in many of the markets, Nigeria included, we're talking about double-digit interest rates. Do you really want to pay back credit at 20, 30, 40% interest rate? So one of the places we can look at is impact investing. That's something that with the generational change of investors has become much more, has come up front in the scene. And impact investing is really around aligning profit with purpose and making sure that as an investor, where you put your money, you still want profit. You're not a nonprofit, but you still want to make your returns. But you invest in things that really align with your own values, whether it be around poverty, around education, around healthcare, etc. I personally, so if you heard of the SDG goals, Sustainability Development Goals, number 4, 5, and 8 are the ones that really align with my own values, and that's around quality education, that's around gender equality, and that's around decent work. So when I think about where I want to invest both my time and my treasure, this is where I focus my efforts. We all have 24 hours in a day. We also have some cap on our funds, and so we really need to focus our efforts. Another place is incubator programs, and I believe one of the panelists sort of hinted at this. And incubators or even venture studios, basically they assist startups and assist small businesses in basically refining your business ideas. So everything that you might come to a strategy consultant like myself, a management consultant, an incubator will provide this to you really pro bono as part of what they provide to the ecosystem. And many of them also even attach a grant to it. So you have incubators like the Co-Creation Hub here in Nigeria, also Orange Corners here in Nigeria, and $25,000, $40,000. You go through a 6-month, 12-month program. You learn how to build your business in a sustainable manner. And in addition, you get some quote unquote free money to build the business. And then a third area is maybe crowdfunding platforms, perhaps not as well known on the continent, but very well leveraged in the West, where basically you go to a crowdfunding platform, you talk about your problem that you're trying to solve, and then people from around the world have the opportunity to invest in that problem and invest in your business. And so crowdfunding has really then sort of democratized and access to market for many small businesses. You have Farm Crowdy here in Nigeria, you have Mchenga in Kenya, Pan-African one is Better World. So again, impact investing, incubator programs, and venture studios, and crowdfunding platforms would be the three areas that I would suggest to look. It's not just equity, it's not just debt. There are many other opportunities for funding within your business.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that. There are other funding sources that, I mean, like they're usually ignored. Even here in AFF, we have an accelerator and incubator, and I know that we help startups. I mean, like if you have an idea, you want to grow it and you do not know how to, or you don't have the resource, we have so many. We have from legal resources to technical. We have an Oracle subscription, and this is just for like startups who are really, I mean, like if you just have an idea you want to grow, it's an incubator. It would literally help you grow from A to, I mean, Z, or from whatever level you're on, whatever level you're at, would help you figure out every step of the way. And it is, again, this is the reason for this sort of events, this sort of webinars where you get information. You might think, oh, I don't know where I'll get the $100 from. Let's just say $100. I don't know where I'll get Oracle subscription money. And you're like, oh, but there's a startup here. There's an incubator here, rather. There's AFF. We're organizing these events. You can reach out to any of us. At the same time, I have this problem. How do I get the idea? How do I get to solve it? This is like, we have a panel. We have people here who can give you practical advice, as long as you're able to, as long as you understand your problem and just can communicate it properly. Thank you so much. So hi, Oladiwara. For a non-profit startup how does a non-profit startup approach early stage funding? Are there specific funding sources that you particularly think are helpful for non-profit versus profit ventures?
Okay, thank you. Well, I would say that there are quite a number. Some of them also a bit similar to, what Adeolu had mentioned earlier. But I will start from the obvious one, which is grants, right? For nonprofit organizations, I mean, a lot of nonprofit organizations get their funding primarily comes from grants, and there are grants from like different sources, right? So there's philanthropy, corporate philanthropy. So depending on what type of organizations, I know that Microsoft, Google, the big OEMs mostly have philanthropic arms that are, some of them call them CSR, but some of them call them philanthropy arms that are responsible also for providing grants for organizations, both a blend of for-profit organizations and non-profit organizations, actually. You also have bilateral organizations. By bilateral organizations, I mean that organizations that support like a blend of activities across borders. So say, for example, the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office that sort of supports between the UK and Nigeria as an example. They also provide like grant opportunities that can easily be accessed. You also have, aside from that, you also ideally have like government programs that also provide grant opportunities. A basic example that comes to mind right now is it's called IDICE by the Bank of Industry. It's an investment in digital and creative enterprises program that also provides like access to like, so that's just an example of like a grant opportunity for even, and this is not even just for nonprofits, a blend of for-profit and non-profit initiatives that focus, for example, on digital and creative and the creative economy as an example. So those would be like, so grants would be number one, as sort of like that sort of like opportunity or platform where a non-profit startup will sort of like get early stage funding, and also for-profit startups actually can get early stage funding. There are tons and tons of small grant opportunities for-profit startups that exist. that have nothing to do with even accessing like taking equity from you or anything. Some of them small size, 10K, 20K, 25K, that are easily accessible to early stage startups, both a blend of for-profit and non-profit. I would say that the second, right? I'll give four, maybe, yeah, about four. The second I would say is, like Adeolu also mentioned that earlier, it's sort of like fundraising and donation. So you can easily fundraise through platforms like GoFundMe. They're not as popular on this side, especially in the global south. GoFundMe, Global Giving, those are opportunities for like organizations or small scale or early stage startups to be able to, you know, fundraise through those platforms. You can also actually get access to donations. So for example, I know especially I'll talk about the OEMs. I know they give access to, like, they donate things like cloud credits. I know AWS does that. I know Microsoft does that as well, for organizations that could be technology startups, right? Which we all know that cloud is something very, very important in terms of the fact that it also costs money to be able to host your solutions. That's something that can be critical in terms of being able to access this cloud credit. Sometimes they give 5K, sometimes they give 7K. Goes a long way in supporting a small scale or an early stage business. The third I would say will be fellowship and accelerators. AFF is doing a fantastic work around that, so I could easily blow the trumpet on that. But they're also for non-profit and even for-profit organizations, actually. There's also a blend of like fellowship programs that provide access to funding or some sort of funding support that has nothing to do with equity or debt at all. So there are fellowships like Echoing Green. For anyone who is here, Echoing Green is currently running their applications at the moment, and you could pretty much just look them up. I know that they provide, for example, I think alongside getting into the fellowship, which is highly competitive, by the way, an average, people have to apply an average of like 3 times to be able to get into the Echoing Green. I think they provide about $100,000 alongside the access to that fellowship. Same as Ashoka. Ashoka is also another fellowship program that provides access to some stipend for the work that the for-profit or non-profit founder is working on, but this definitely has to be social impact focused. And the last one I will mention is impact investors. If I heard correctly, I think Adeolu also did touch on that, but I would just give examples of like organizations that actually support social enterprises. And for people in the room who might be curious about what impact investors do, is that these are organizations that sort of provide access to funding to social enterprises. The idea is that they go after like a bit of a lower financial returns, but the reason for lower financial returns is because they're looking more at social impact or like societal benefits. So there are organizations, or that there are organizations like Acumen, for example, or there are organizations like Biomedia Network that actually focus on supporting like early stage, both early stage and even scale organizations with like impact investment. So those are the 4 sort of like approaches that I would say. So grants, impact investors or investment, fundraising through like crowdfunding platforms, or accessing like donations from like organizations such like OEMs, and also fellowships and accelerators.
Thank you so much, Laura. That was so comprehensive. And I hope like everyone is taking notes, because there's so much information that most people are not aware of, and most people cannot even access. I mean, you mentioned Echoing Green, and I don't think I've ever heard them before. And even for crowdfunding, it's not so successful here, but they are businesses. I mean, even Peloton, they had a Kickstarter campaign which was able to fund their business. And even though that's not popular here, we can call crowdfunding asking your friends for fund. I mean, there's networking vertically. If you're working, everyone has friends, and even the 10,000 they bring for your business can go a long way. That's also crowdfunding, but it's crowdfunding within your circles. Thank you so much, Laura. Hi, Nidhi. So
I mean, like you're a startup that's focused on you want a startup that's sustainable focus, sustainability focused. What do you think are some promising funding options at early stage, and how do they differ from late stage funding opportunities?
I guess, hi Nosike. I guess the beauty is that right now we are starting to see an increasing number of VC firms that have a sustainability lens that is also guided by the LPs that also invest in some of those VC firms. So with us working in the climate tech, in the sustainability tech, we found ourselves in a good position. But what happens is that what's different between funding for sustainability and climate tech at the earliest stage and also at later stage, it's something that is always been spoken about right now, to say that we have not seen a lot of success cases of startups within the climate tech space that have scaled to reach your growth stage, high growth. So a lot of them, we're still circling around the early stage part, and we're still trying to figure out our business model as to whether we are kumbaya startups like non-profit, or we are actually the kind of startups that are generating revenue or will provide returns to investors. So with us, we are sort of sitting at a position where there's funding for early stage, but there has not been great case studies that have built to show that sustainability startups can scale and become at the level of fintech companies on the African continent.
Okay, thank you so much. So I know you operate between two markets, US and South Africa. Does this affect your funding strategy, or does it influence your funding strategy?
I didn't get your question.
I mean, so your funding strategy, does it influence where you operate in your markets, US and South Africa? Does it influence your funding strategy currently?
Yes, it does. Operating in two markets that are totally different affects our fundraising strategy, because a lot of times, when we're raising funding, we're caught in between, where we would talk to US investors and they would say, oh, but you also do some operations in Africa and we don't touch Africa, we don't understand you. And we'll talk to some VCs on the continent, primarily in South Africa, and they would say, oh, but you're a US company, you also have customers in the US, and we are waiting for US investors to invest in you first before we come in. So we are just literally at the crossroad. And I remember we got to a point where we needed to pick one market that's going to become a market that we drive our story with, because it's one of those things where you find startups that are in multiple markets, because that's the nature of a lot of startups on the African continent. You never easily just find that one market that you can build $1 billion business out of. You quickly see startups from seed level literally just saying, oh, I'm in Kenya, I'm quickly scaling in Rwanda and in Ethiopia. But as you fundraise, you need to build your story around that one market, and that is what investors love. And with us, we had to say, let's build our story around the South African market. It's a market that is quite misunderstood by a lot of people, but we had to do a lot of job of educating our investors of the South African market and the opportunities of the South African market.
Thank you so much. What you said again just reminded me of knowing your stuff, because it's different when you're meeting South African investors, rather, but when you're meeting from other countries and they're like, what's this market supposed to be? But when you understand, when you know how your startup, how your business play in the economy in which you're operating, it's easier to educate, easier to show them, okay, so this problem solving, this is where the money is going to come in, because I'm sure that's what they want to hear. If you give me so and so amount, this is how much I'll give to you, and this is how much it is worth in South Africa as well as in the global markets. This is where to place you.
Yeah.
No, don't worry, speak.
I was saying, like, the one thing about fundraising is that we usually miss the opportunity of educating investors. You know, sometimes even investors may say no, but that opportunity to educate an investor is that you are giving them some information, because sometimes they do come back. You know, I always say that investors, you find some investors that move around different funds. You know, they might say no to you based on the thesis of the fund they're managing right now. But a year from now, they might be moving to another fund that may have the same thesis, the thesis that your startup aligns with. So when you give them the opportunity to educate them, they might go to that fund and they might talk to you then and give you a yes. So just that relationship that is embedded on education is quite beneficial for a lot of founders.
Very good. And I think that also answers someone had asked, it seems like women-led startups are usually different from men-led startups. And it's not just about the difference, it's really about what are you doing? Do you understand it? Can you educate? And can you can you speak to it? Can you educate the investor, the person in front of you about it? If you know what you're doing, if you understand it properly, it's easier to convince or to tell someone, oh, this is what I need the money for. I mean, like, show me where the money is. Literally, I need the money. I know what I need it for. Let me tell you how it would help you. Let me tell you why you should come, why you should bring your money into this business. I mean, it's literally about tailoring your pitch according to what the investors want to hear. An investor who is more fintech focused can tailor to something green, something sustainable, just because of what you're saying. And if you're thinking, oh, this investor might not be focused on say bridging inequality gap, or being focused, or this investor has been focused on male-led startups, but you're a female-led startups, you can convince him. I mean, you're meeting the SDG goal. How is your company made that? I'm helping you meet this target. It's something else that people should consider, people should be aware of. You should don't be sad, don't be begrudged. Don't think, oh, because this investor doesn't meet my profile, or it doesn't have like my startups or my type of startup in his profile. You can be the first, and the investments or the value of the investment can even be more than all the other startups, or more than he or she has gotten from his portfolio. Hi, Temi. So for as a startup founder, we know that investors have high tenure. The next question is CEO. We know that investors often have different expectations depending on the sector. How did you tailor your pitch specifically to investors in healthcare and tech sector?
First of all, a lot of research. You have to kind of know what their thesis is, right? So there's no point, spending a lot of time pitching to maybe a lot of companies that are maybe fintech focused, and I'm a healthcare company. I'm almost always going to get no's, because they are not just interested in what I'm doing. They might like what I'm doing, but they're not going to be able to deliver that back to their investors. Another thing I think I spend a lot of time doing is I spend a lot of time researching. So I'll go on YouTube. You'll be surprised how many pitches are out there for you to just watch and learn from. So you have people whereby I want to pitch your firm. I've gone online, I've seen the type of companies you actually invest in, and then I try to find a lot of articles on them. I try to understand why, before I even talk to you, you chose these companies, and see if my company, I can tell my story to kind of align with what seems to be like what you're interested in. Storytelling is a very powerful thing when you're pitching. You almost have everything you need in your company. And like I said earlier, you're the only one who knows your company best, you know your business best. The investor doesn't know anything about your business. So you have to be confident enough to tell them everything. Even when you have questions, you don't have to be flustered, because at the end of the day, you're the one in the business and they're not there. I also think you need to practice a lot. And they always say, don't pitch your best investor first. So if you're aiming for I don't know, maybe a YC, for example, you probably want to try smaller companies first, so that, you get enough feedback. People are able to tell you, this is wrong. They give you feedback. They ask you questions that maybe you're not able to answer, but that's fine. You're able to research. So by the time you get to your best investor, the person you really know you want to bring in to your cap table, you've literally gone through a lot and you've understood the niche and the intricacies of the ecosystem and how to basically pitch your business. I also think that for healthcare in particular, right, I think we already start a bit lower than everybody else, especially on the continent. Fintech is like big. Everybody likes fintech, investors, users, everything. But people feel that, healthcare it's not as easy, because Africans or maybe Nigerians, don't necessarily pay for healthcare. It's not something that is like big on the continent, but we know it's a big problem. So people kind of see it as a favor sometimes. Like you have those kind of questions like, how are you making money? So you also have to quickly understand how to sort of tell your story to make them see that it is a business. It's not a charity organization. It's not something that you're doing to help the masses. Yes, it does have an impact side, but that's not the core. Literally, there's money to be made here because some people do actually pay for it, even if it's government funded and all that. So yeah, so basically research on their thesis, ensure that, you also sometimes some funds are just not giving out money. So if you spend your time, rehearsing, pitching to a fund that is actually not in the market at the moment, they will take your meetings, they will talk to you, but they don't have money to give out. Don't be emotional. And I think we had that initially as well with the keynote speakers. Don't be emotional. You will get a lot of no's. When you get the no's, just take it and then take the advice, take the feedback, and try and use it to improve your next pitch. So yeah, constant practice as well.
Yeah. I mean, like for you to practice, you have to have source information. Research is so important. You have a problem, you're going to meet someone. It's important to understand the person so you know how you can tailor your speech, how you can say what you want to say, how to best position yourself in a way that will be attractive to the other person. This goes across everything, even not just for healthcare, for every sort of business you're running. If you're looking for money, when you start looking for money, you have to know, what should I say to this person that will touch the person? Should I be emotional about it? I mean, he's not doing you a favor. You're not doing the person a favor, but you still need the person to help you. You still need the person to drop the money. And I mean, you can be emotional, but the person can be rational. So you have to make sure that you're being as rational as the person would want to hear. I mean, I like how you said fintech is the bubbling thing. I think fintech was the bubbling thing. I don't think a lot of people are doing fintech anymore. We've started seeing how important other spaces are. I mean, edtech at this time, COVID, edtech was blowing up. I mean, now you're seeing a lot of health tech, you're seeing a lot of prop tech getting funding and also getting traction, the traction it deserves. People are realizing that there are other problems that needs to be solved. Even if you have the money, where you're going to direct the money or how you're going to spend the money. Healthcare is also bubbling down. I mean, okay, and with fintech, there are different angles, there are different places, and I love what Clasher is doing in regards to cross-border payments. And hi, Jess, I think to you, what do you think of what do you believe investors prioritize when assessing fintech startups, especially those starting cross-border payments?
Yeah, thank you so much for the platform. I think given the macroeconomic environment now, all investors are optimizing for are cash flow positive businesses and businesses that are generating revenue. I think if we look at the hype or the boom of funding in 2021, many startups could raise money based on growth and traction and customer and merchant metrics. But now simply all that matters is revenue, gross margins, increasing your profits and becoming cash flow positive. So I think if we look at the prioritization of VCs in China and also parts of Europe and San Francisco, unless you're running a company like AI, for example, you really need to focus on your unit economics and making sure you're building a company for profitability. And I think that is a trend that has changed in the last couple of years, and something that any company, whether fintech or not, needs to think about seriously, given what is going on macroeconomically in Africa and also just globally now with the different recessions that we're seeing and the hike in interest rates from the Fed in the US. I think you're mute.
Yeah. Yes, I was. Thank you so much for that. It's very important to understand what the unit economics is saying in order to be able to say, oh, I'm expecting so amount of money. If you say you're raising a particular amount, you have to be you have to be rational and factual about how much you would get, and not just expecting and not just pulling numbers and expecting that amount. So we'll move. Sorry, no, speak.
No, I was just agreeing with what you were saying. I think, coming up with a plan, looking at your P&L and balance sheet and just ensuring that you're raising enough money so that you're also not giving away too much equity at the beginning is also quite critical. And just being very clear and direct, this is how much I need, this is what I'm going to use it for, these are the expected returns and or exit strategy. And I think that, it's becoming more and more important to be very clear. I think you've noticed how quick my answers are and how succinct they are, because VCs really appreciate their time and see a lot of companies on a daily basis. So they like you to get straight to the point, and knowing your numbers is critical.
I love how straight to the point you are. It's very important. There's a time to sit, discuss, and there's time to, okay, these are my numbers, and let me show you the numbers. Let's just go straight to it. Let me make sure you understand the number before we find time to discuss. It's some people would think, oh, I mean, like, this is my family I'm talking to, but there's your family and then there's the investors. Know your market, know who you're talking to, know the space you're in currently, and tailor your conversations according to the situation or where you even find yourself. So everyone, just remember there's a hashtag AFM Women in Tech 4.0, hashtag overcoming the funding gap. We're talking a lot of things about funding, the funding gap, how you can overcome it, how to even communicate. So there's a lot of gems dropping on that. We're not just speaking on the funding gap, but also saying how do you tailor your speech, how do you tailor your pitch towards the investors. So there's the option of what you want to, how much you're supposed to be looking for at every stage, as well as who you should meet for every stage of your growth as a startup. Hi, Dolapo. I guess as a venture capitalist with a venture platform fund, how do you approach evaluating startups in different sectors? And what specific factors are most critical in determining whether a company is investment worthy or not?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for your question. I'm very glad to be on this panel today. I think most of the panelists have started like touching upon some of the factors, but like Yvonne said, I think first of all, the management team is super critical, especially with early stage investing. You're backing a team really, because the traction is still limited at the earlier stages. So you want to be able to see that that team is the best team to win in that particular market. So we kind of talk about it. We say product, we call it team market fit, right? So just ensuring that.
Hi, Dolapo, you're muted. I think you accidentally pressed the button.
Oh, wow. Sorry about that. Yeah. So I was talking about the team and just ensuring that the team has the adequate experience to be able to win in that particular sector, because VC investment isn't necessarily meant to go to every type of founder. I think Teniola kind of mentioned that as well earlier on. You know, when you even think about it in the US, only 0.2% of startups get VC funding. So it's really for the top of the pipeline. And so just ensuring that your management team has the adequate skill set is critical. I think the second one is around the market opportunity. So we're investing for outsized returns. You know, we're thinking around how can we reach a 10x investment in a particular company. And so for that to happen, the market has to be large enough for us to be able to make our returns. The money isn't necessarily the investors' money. We're actually getting this money from external people that we need to return in a fixed amount of time. So in a 10-year kind of pipeline is like the maximum ideal timeline when we think around how funds life cycle works. So just ensuring that your business is suitable to actually be a multi-million-dollar company in about 10 years. And that doesn't work for every type of business, especially in Africa, where you think about the fact that like the size of the pockets are small. And so that isn't necessarily feasible for every single type of investment. So just thinking around, is your business scalable enough where the cost of acquiring a new customer is cheaper, means that you're able to scale that business over time and exhibit significantly like high growth over time. I think the third one is around the traction, and it's probably one of the most important things in this climate. The markets or the macroeconomic situation isn't necessarily the best globally. And so if you're not like an AI startup, like Jess mentioned, really we want to be able to see that there is actually a demand for your product, whether it's a user base, whether it's revenue, and actually getting more important to your gross margin. So ensuring that your unit economics actually make sense, because investors are spending a lot more time in, you know, financial due diligence, like the way we did diligence last year is extremely different from the way we do diligence this year. The periods of time that we do our diligence is a lot longer. We look at bank statements in detail. So just ensuring all your financials are really in place is super, super critical as well. And I would say lastly, just around like your business model, like does it work in today's economy? Can people actually afford what it is that you're selling at the price in which that you're selling it? So if you're thinking about serving the bottom of the pyramid in Nigeria, like what is the disposable income that they have to be able to buy whatever it is that you're selling? So ensuring that your business model actually works and you're fulfilling a need and not a want. So I would say, for example, in our fund, our thesis is around market creating innovation for non-consumption, which is essentially we're trying to back entrepreneurs that are almost creating new markets or serving customers in markets that have previously been underserved in a cheaper or more efficient manner. And so anything that's, maybe premium or top of the pyramid thing wouldn't necessarily be a fit for a fund like us. So also thinking around the investment thesis for the different funds that you're approaching is quite critical. And you don't have to necessarily reach out to investors like when you're ready to raise. I think it's actually important to start having those conversations early on because there is some form of understanding of the competitive landscape that we have, given the amount of deal flow that we see. And so just having an idea of where the opportunity lies, I think is very important rather than, investing your own capital, because usually you would start with investing your own capital in businesses. So having an idea of where the opportunity lies, so you don't, do 2 years down the line and you realize actually there's a clear winner in that space that has 10 years more experience than you, that is more likely to win. And to wrap it all up, I think it's just not taking anything personal, really like getting a no is a normal thing. The best of the best entrepreneurs with the best backgrounds get no's on a daily basis, but you may need to get 100 no's to eventually get a yes. And traction speaks for itself. So I would say focusing more on actually building a business that people even like investors are even reaching out to you, which is something that we do. We also shop for founders that we want to invest in. And so when you're building a very strong business, that whether it's a consumer business, customers are already raving about it, you would actually see a pull from investors and you have more leverage at that time. So as much as you can initially focus on building your business to show some form of traction and good economics before actually going to seek investors from investment from institutional investors is something that I would advise. So if you can start with maybe bootstrapping or grants or like accelerators at that stage, so you can actually innovate and there's a lot more flexibility and less investor pressure is what I would advise.
I really like how you mentioned flexibility and investment pressure, because you'll see that with incubators, there's a lot of allowance. There's a lot of, like, we know that, okay, you're still like a baby, so we understand we're still giving you milk. You would make mistakes. You might not even know what a deal flow is. You don't know what a cap table should be, but that is what an incubator will teach you. That those are like the terms that you get to understand in an incubator. And you'd also get to understand that at this stage, this is how much I need. If you go to, a venture platform, like Vlaco said, and you're expecting a certain amount of money, but you do not even know how to communicate. You don't know, there are the terms that you're expected to say, and then you're missing it. There's that mismatch. It will just show automatically, it will show immediately. So it's important to start at your level, start from the beginning, grow, and then once you're able to get the traction, they would look for you. They would actually start shopping for you. So it's not you start and then you're moving, you're going to, even if you have a friend there, but you have to grow, you have to understand the terms, you have to understand how the, not just the economy, but how the business works, how the space you're playing in works, what would the other person be looking for? What would an investor be looking for? If you come to an incubation hub, say like AFF, we know that we're literally teaching you. We have like a 12-week course where every type of person, we have the legal team, we have the development team, we have the operations, we even have the HR that would help you understand this is how you should build your team. This is what your team should look like before you can attract these type of investments.
And I mean, Tenny, I like how you said, don't take it personal. Blackwell even mentioned that rejections would happen. Rejection can happen, but if you're ready to just move on from it, you'll be able to look forward and look ahead and see, okay, this is why they rejected me. This is what they said, that this can be the reason they rejected me. What can I do to meet that which is missing? How can I fill up the space? And so for Tenny, what roles did you prioritize when building your team? And how did you ensure everyone aligned with the company's vision and fundraising goals?
So when we first started, we didn't have funding. So I would say we've leveraged our friends a lot who are already like, I would say, leaders in their own space. So I want someone to do digital marketing for me. My co-founder is a product manager and she has a lot of people in that space. We'll talk to our friends who, would have the level of skill that we want, but we're able to maybe, pay something smaller for their great service. So in terms of focusing, we looked at our key fundamentals in our business. We're able to see what are the key factors that bring together Pharmaron. So we're basically a platform that connects pharmacies to users. So we need someone in operations. So we got someone in operations. We definitely need someone to help us take our product to market. So we got someone in growth. Then we got someone in engineering because I don't code and my co-founder doesn't code, she does products. So essentially, I think it's critical to look at like the core fundamentals. There are some fancy things you might want, like getting an EA very early on is not going to be useful to you. Maybe getting someone to do, I see small tasks really might not be useful. So you have to look at the fundamentals of your business, like what really do I need to literally take this business from zero to like even the next stage. And those are the key things I would say you should focus on. Then in terms of accessing people, like I said, we definitely leveraged our network. We didn't have a lot of money. So we didn't hire, like I would say, the best of the best initially. But then it's also important to get people who are highly driven and, highly focused on your vision, the key. So people who have experienced similar problems. So we're able to like see people who, have experienced what we're trying to solve for. They are really passionate about healthcare. They also want to like solve this problem alongside you. So I would say it was sort of like an easy sell when we're able to say, this is what we're trying to do. And you're like, oh man, I remember when this happened to me and I really want to make sure it doesn't happen to somebody else. And those are the people we had initially. And they're literally passionate about solving this problem because it's easy to sort of, I'll say, throw money, and people will definitely come in and out of your organization because of money. But if you're able to get people really early on who really key into your vision and who are passionate about what you're trying to solve, then those are people that will legit stay with you for the long haul.
I mean, we have Paystack who after Stripe, but then everyone was cashing out. Everyone was saying how all of them they cashed out, and nobody really understood how much work they had put in. I think there was an article someone had done, one of them, and when I was reading it, I was like, this who did a lot too. Like I think there were like 5 who started and everybody were doing like 3 different things at the same time. But that's literally what the startup is. From the beginning until big money finds them, everybody is taking up responsibilities. Everybody is doing doing that thing which is missing, taking up that role. I mean, you can be doing marketing, sales at the same time. You're going to find going to pitch or also building the pitch deck. I have a friend who was supposedly trying to do a startup, and then he was like, "Oh, I should help him do product management." I'm like, "I will teach somebody," but I was teaching, and you just have to know. I think as a founder, you just have to share or communicate that belief to your core team so they're willing to join you in the hustle, join you in building until you get the money that you can hire.
Yeah, and I want to say, like, a lot of times I think there's this notion of startups just blew, like there's an overnight success. I don't think there's any startup that blew overnight. Like there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, a lot of time that the person has been grinding behind the scenes before the person came into the limelight, and you're like seeing everything, and it kind of seems like, oh, this person is lucky, right? But it's not necessarily true. They've gone through like a lot, literally, before they got to the place where it's all shiny and glossy. So,
yeah. Most people don't see all the time you're telling in the night. They just see when you're when you're in front of camera, when you're smiling, when you're doing the interview, or when you do the team photo, they're seeing of you with your shirts, but they don't know that, see, we were awake till 2 o'clock. We've done all night. 24 hours work is what you're seeing now, what you're using. And then these are part of the success stories. These times, these notes, they're part of the success stories. We'll celebrate a pay stack now, so let's celebrate a Piggyverse, but they will not know whether they tried to Mojola to VI. They will not know that there was a time when they did not have car. There's now when Odu was saying how to buy car, and the investor was, are you okay? Why are we buying car now? But this is literally like the success story that as a company would build or would form the foundation for your company. If your core team know that we have to put in the work, as they hire more people, everybody will know that, see, this work you're saying for somebody else, if you can do it yourself, do it yourself at the same time. And when someone else comes, they'll take over, but just put in the work. We have to achieve success. That's literally what we're aiming for.
Can I just ask a question? Thank you for a great panel so far. So we're talking about transparency, accountability, giving women opportunities. We have many VCs on this call and accelerators. Can everybody maybe say, when was the last time you actually invested in a woman and how much you invested? Let's start with the Access Bank team. This is about holding people accountable and being transparent, and supporting women, especially in Africa. So I think we have 3 funds on this team, or 3 incubators at least. Can you guys go around and say the size of your fund, when the last time you invested in a woman was, and how much you invested? And let's actually have a transparent, open conversation about what is actually happening on the ground.
Okay, so I guess I can speak on the Access Bank team, and I can't give numbers because I don't handle that, but I'll speak to what how I contribute. So investment doesn't have to be monetary or financial, but we run programs here, and it's not just with words. We actually have the Female Digital Academy, where barring startups here, we actually train people. And at the same time, we also employ. So there's giving money to startup. There's also empowering women as much as we can. This is because I can't speak to the numbers because I don't handle the numbers, but this is what I handle, or what I work with, or what I work on, that I'm speaking to. So maybe
right, but that's the challenge, right? Because we're always talking about women empowerment. Right now, we're talking about women getting funded, right? So the question is, how much are you funding women-backed startups? And if you don't have that information, maybe somebody on the Access Bank team can get that information by the time this seminar ends, so that we can actually have a fluid, open discussion about the today.
Okay.
Dolapo, go next, maybe.
Go next. So, okay. Did you want to go?
Yeah, I wanted to speak to Access Bank in what we do in terms of, first of all, it's a bank. And first, we have funds that we set, or we give to accelerator hubs, or we give to NGOs, or we give to organizations that fund women, in terms of grants, in terms of providing services, or not just only in terms of hiring, but in terms of providing them in quantifiable service. For instance, we provide in AFF, for one, we provide technical advice, we provide technical assistance, we provide developers, we provide workspace, we provide those who require some, in terms of recruitment, we assist in recruitment, provide legal services. Africa FinTech Foundation itself does not necessarily have a fund where it sits and says, okay, we are giving XYZ amount. It's something that we're actually growing into, creating a fund where we can actually start to fund different startups, women, men, different businesses in different sectors. In Access Bank particularly, and I think if Abiodun is still on the call, she can speak to what W does in terms of funding, in terms of women entrepreneur. Every year they hold the Women Entrepreneur program, and that program technically trains many women in business, not only in the tech ecosystem, but businesses, from market women to shop owners to farmers, etc. They train them, they also give them grants, and these grants I think was gotten from one of the international organizations, either World Bank or the UN. But there's a particular fund in which the Women Banking is in charge of, that they actually use to distribute funds for women. So Access Bank has done massively, and is still doing massively in actually empowering women, not just only like on a funding perspective, because you can give money, and if you give money and the person you're giving money to doesn't know how to utilize that money, then basically it's just a waste. But we make sure that aside that funding that we provided, we're providing that skill sets, that assistance that helps them grow. So that's, I think Tenny also mentioned earlier that even if your eyes is on YC, you're starting smaller with like smaller accelerator hubs like the Africa Tech Foundry or like other impact hub or the rest of them here in Nigeria, and then you're going to get to that YC they're looking to get, and that's kind of what we try to do. We try to help businesses start small. So we help them partner with Access Bank's 60 million and above customers, connecting them with Access Bank subsidiaries, making sure that that growth is there. So that when you actually want to start to raise a, Fund Z or a Fund K, you actually make that groundwork to actually get that funding. And that's just me speaking from an Access Bank and Africa Fintech Foundry perspective.
Thanks for sharing that, but I think we're still missing the point, right? This panel is about women accessing funding, not accessing empowerment and resources. We're talking about money in the bank, which is the disparity that we're facing as female founders and African founders specifically. So I think it would be really good if we could get that exposure. The part of this is about transparency, creating a safe space so women can actually feel that, they have funds that they can go to where they're actually seeing money, 25K, 100K, 50K being invested into their company. So while it is valuable to have resources and mentoring and all these amazing things that I also had the privilege of having at the start of my career, the literal topic of this conversation is about closing the funding gap, getting fiat into the bank accounts of these female entrepreneurs. And I think that is what I'm trying to understand. Can we talk from a practical standpoint so that the people on this panel can actually know which funds they can tap into and know who to contact after this seminar to be able to access and, tap into the privilege that some of us have had on this panel to access the funding that's available to them. So I don't know if anyone else has any other specific, examples or not anecdotal examples.
No, thanks, Jess. I think very, very valid points. I can speak a little bit about what we're doing at Ventures platform. So we do checks of about $200,000 to $1 million as our first check, and we do follow-ons up to $2.5 million in pre-seed to Series A deals across the continent. I love your question around like how many we've done in the last kind of year. We've done about 4 into female founders. Our current portfolio sits about 33% of our portfolio are female founders in their team. And I think when we look about the African continent, I think it's about 12% or 13%, depending on which source you use. And it's an initiative we're piloting at VP. It's called Leveling VC. Some people that might have been for some of our events or follow us on LinkedIn might be aware of this, but we're in the pilot phase of this initiative. And the whole purpose is to be able to increase that number from 12% to 25% within the next kind of 4 years. But we don't think it's one fund's responsibility to do. We think it's an ecosystem-wide problem that cannot be solved by us alone, right? And so we're tackling it. We've done some studies. I've been part of the IFC kind of gender lens investing program for the last 6 months. That has really helped us to understand where the problem lies, because I think the first thing is understanding the problem before you can actually generate a solution. And I can just share kind of quickly around like snippets from the Leveling VC document. And we see the problem in 5 folds. And I think it's firstly starting with the limited efficacy of the existing intervention. So I think your point is very valid. I think support is needed before also becoming a VC backable business, because the truth of the matter is actually that not all entrepreneurs can build billion-dollar companies, right? So the current kind of ecosystem solutions, we believe, is a bit limited in the efficacy because they have been programs that have existed for years, but we still see the number kind of staying within the same number in the last few years. Second one is there's a lack of a forcing function. So there is nothing that's really propelling any fund to do it. Like you don't have to invest in women founders if you don't want to, which is why we are trying to spearhead this initiative where funds can join us and actually pledge to be a part of it and announce it so that, like you said, the female founders on this call or across Africa can be aware of, okay, these are the funds that I know that are specifically kind of targeting women. So I can list some of the ones. There's First Check Africa, there's Arua Capital, There's funds like us that we aren't necessarily a gender lens fund, but we do have like internal targets that we're trying to meet to back female founders. And maybe after the call can probably share it to be, you know, kind of some of the work we started doing internally around that. The one is there's a limited amount of female VCs because at the end of the day, there's a unconscious bias where a man relates a little bit more to a man. And so just having more female VCs on the other side of the table may make you feel a little bit more comfortable when you see someone that looks like you. I think the third problem is just the limited supply of female founders. And yes, there might be female founders, but female founders building $1 billion companies are still limited because it starts from how you're trained to think about life from like primary school, right? Are you taught to want to build billion-dollar companies? Probably not. A lot of them are a lot of women doing STEM education? Not necessarily. There has been progress over the last few years, but it's still something. So there's a limited supply, which is why, you know, as a fund alone with 5 team members, right? We can't do it. So we need the ecosystem to support us in like, you know, going to schools, educating people around what venture capital is about. Like I didn't know about VC until I got to university. So there's a lot of work that needs to go, taking a step back. Like you can't set a target today and plan to meet it, you know, in the next year. And then I think the last one is just limited awareness of commitments of so just publicizing it a little bit more. So those are some of the problems, and we're trying to find solutions around it. And yeah, where it's going to be through the Ventures Platform Foundation that would be led by and probably be announced in a few months. But it's something that we're looking to spearhead, and we're definitely looking for other funds to kind of join us to be a part of it. Yeah.
Awesome.
I
Thanks
think
for
the last
sharing.
point is like, if you're a female founder, definitely send an email, definitely apply through our website. It's my internal KPI to meet a particular target annually. And so that's also a forcing function that we have to do that. So yeah.
And I think this question is just indicative of what we're saying. Women need to be bullish, be confident, go off scripts, you know, get what you want and really kind of ask for the questions that you want answered. I know we're off topic, you know, which is unexpected for the Access Bank team. So sorry, guys, but this is what we're trying to encourage: honest, transparent conversation, and for women to really take a seat at the table and hold people accountable. Okay, so Oyindamola said we're actually on topic. True, we actually may be on topic, but for the Access Bank, you guys may disagree. But anyway,
No, actually, so I could just say I love that you brought up the question. I love that you asked because I love how Dolapo said it's an ecosystem thing. That's what this program is supposed to be. So we're not just focusing on funding, but what are the steps to funding? What do you need before you get to that fund? And as much as we can say your eye should be on the prize, but there are people who do not even know that if you have an idea, this is where you can start from. Most people do not understand that. Dolapo said in school she didn't know what VC was. In uni, she didn't hear about VC. In uni, I didn't also know there was you could be a developer. I didn't know you could program, not just as a woman, but as a job. So there's the education that needs to happen. There's the sociological education in educating women or encouraging women to go for what they want. There's also, as a startup founder, this is what you need. And then there's as a startup founder raising, this is the amount of money you need. So all the sort of discussion we have here, all the sort of discussion are important. I think it was 10 years someone who said before you get to YC, there's so many things you need to know. Everyone keeps calling YC as the peak, as the standard, but there are several stages to YC. There are several steps, several small ticket funds you can get to YC. We hold a conversation, we release those information. Information is as important as the money itself. You can't attract the money if you're not packaged accordingly. So I guess we can go back, or is someone else going to answer or going to give a suggestion? I love the question. I love the fact that questions can lead to other sort of information. Dolapo has just mentioned these are KPI. So it means that if you're looking for the money, hit out directly. That's how passionate she is about it. I mean, so thank you for that, Jess. I think I would even ask you, like, so as you just asked question, let me just even get your thoughts on, so how do you think founders and entrepreneurs address investors' concern about market risk. We're talking about unit economics and macroeconomics, but how can founders address like that concern in your pitch, in your discussion with investors? How do you meet it? How do you just demonstrate long-term growth potential from or like to an investor?
I think Adeolu, you wanted to say something before I answer that question. Did you want to add something?
Your
I
mic
don't think we
is
can hear you. We can't hear you. No, we can't hear you.
We can't hear you at all. We still
Okay.
can't hear you.
So maybe I should answer while she sorts her audio out. I think the reality of if you're building for Africa, there are a lot of micro and macroeconomic risks, currency devaluation, political unrest, shaky regulatory environment. I think the best thing to do is just to address it head on, maybe list all the market realities and just explain how your company's either going to circumvent this or optimize for these risks, because the reality is that in the global south, we have a very fragmented infrastructure and a lot of the things that we're doing here are nascent. So I don't think it's about deterring from the fact that these market realities exist. It's just about educating the investor that, look, these do exist. This is my plan to be able to, jump over this hurdle. And, this is how I'm going to do it specifically. So I think a lot of entrepreneurs try to minimize the reality of what happens in the market to try and, get the investor on board, especially international investors who don't have the visibility of what really goes on the ground in the global south. But I think for me, the way I've approached it, most of my investors are based in San Francisco and or in Europe. I've just told them, look, this is not only Africa, this is Nigeria. So there's going to be a lot of idiosyncrasies and market realities that you have never heard of, you've never come across. You might Google Nigeria and see different things. Half of it's true, half of it isn't true. And just really explain to them how I'm going to be able to, circumvent them to be able to 10x my business. We know that the fastest growth happens where there's a lack of development. So I don't think the fact that we're an emerging market is problematic to the investors. It's more so just giving them comfort that these realities exist and we are the right team to be able to, address these hurdles and push through them. And I think that's it. Just have a really honest, open conversation. I don't think you can do anything but that. I don't know if my colleagues have anything else to add.
I mean, I think just to quickly add to that is you also have to say, I always say that, you also have to kind of be convinced as a founder yourself that you can handle these risks, right? I mean, the person bearing the brunt of that risk is actually not the investor, it's yourself, right? Because you are the one that is kind of pouring yourself into your startup, right? So you are doing this assessment as to, all of these external conditions, including the market risk and economic risk and whatnot. And you've convinced yourself that, look, you know your way around that, you know how to kind of, overcome all of that and still kind of deliver on that. And once you're able to convince yourself, then, being able to communicate that to an external stakeholder, whether it's a venture capital investor or even a bank that's, offering some sort of financing, it's easier. But again, I think my main point is that it's also a question that you have to answer for yourself, not just for an investor.
Thank you, Yvonne. Okay, Nelly, your hands up. You can go.
No, I was just saying one of the biggest goals as founders is to try to de-risk yourself. Every single moment, you need to think about the risks in your company and outside your company. And it's something that we founders try to shy away from doing that exercise. And a lot of times you find that founders continuously raise more and more capital without thinking about de-risking their business. And you find way into later stage in the company, it faces so many risks that they had avoided. That is why you find that some companies fail on the continent. You find that some companies that have raised tons and tons of funding, and a founder saying, "Oh, we just shut down because this was the risk." So a lot of times in the early stages, the first thing that you need to always do is de-risk yourself as much as a founder. And some of the things that you need to de-risk yourself is, I remember one of my mentors told me this one thing. What would you do if every single person in your business were to leave and you are just the only person? What skills do you possess that would allow you to continuously run the business when every single person is not around? Because there's some moments in the early stages when you run some consultative type of business, So, you know, when I learned that, that's when I started saying, okay, let me shape my business in such a way that should everything just go away and I'm left with nothing, I'll still be able to go and sell to a customer and deliver a product to a customer. So that's the only way you need to always de-risk yourself.
Thank you, Nelly. It's important to take up, do the hard thing, get to know as much as you need to for your business. You might say, okay, I'm a product manager, that is my skill set, but you have to understand the code that goes into your startup. You have to understand what the code is supposed to do, so that even if, you get someone who is supposed to do it, you should understand what the person is doing. You should understand it better than even the person. You should be able to communicate that to the person as well as to the investor. Adeolu, I remember you wanted to say something. I didn't want us to lose you. Can you?
Yeah, I think I don't want to bring us back. So I think we've gone beyond it, but hopefully my audio is not working.
Yeah, it's working now. We can hear you loud and clear. We can hear you very, very much. So
Let's just move on.
Okay, no problem then. So speaking towards the investment ecosystem, and what do you think? Do you think changes are necessary, and what are the changes you think are necessary to better support women entrepreneurs? I like the question Jess had asked, and speaking to that, are there changes that needs to be made in the ecosystem?
Is that for me?
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's well in line, actually, what I had wanted to comment. So fine, we're on the same page. So I think there are two things that I heard from the discussion, and I do like the direction that the discussion has gone in. One is,
can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can. I think we lost Adeolu.
Yes, I think she's okay. I just wanted to confirm. So in the meantime, before we get back, we'll post some questions in the comment section. We've had a lot of people dropping questions. We have a journalist who joined in, and she's just asking, or she's just even suggesting, have there been, this is to all the founders here, anyone can speak, anyone can answer, but she goes, have startups been able to engage the media to showcase most of these and some of these, not just their projects, not just their startup or their business, but also showcase, and this is also to the VCs, have you been able to engage media, and how properly and how appropriately have you been able to engage media to showcase how you're funding, how you're meeting the needs, or how you're even solving problems in Africa and the world at large? Anyone can go.
I'll just quickly chime in here. I will say with the media, they tend to follow the trends of, or tend to cover a lot, the startups that have got a lot of traction or funding, the sexy startups, you don't really hear about the person, selling or doing a traditional business. It's more so that the big fintechs or, the big AI companies that have secured over $1 million, or the founders have an amazing background with key domain expertise. So I think at Clash, we've been very fortunate to have an easy time speaking to the press. They reach out to us if they're doing an article. We reach out to them if we have something that we want to promote, and we have that symbiotic relationship. But I'm coming from a privileged position, and I don't feel like all startups, especially female-led startups, have the same access that I would have given my background and some of the investors that I have on my cap table. So I would say to the founders on the panel, reach out to the typical players in our ecosystem, send them your press release, explain to them what you're doing. Yes, funding attracts a lot of press, but I think that there are still a lot of publications that do want to highlight and feature founders that are doing really interesting things. Reach out to Access Bank. They mentioned they have a blog. That is press, their Instagram, their blog. Press is not always TechCrunch. Press is not always Bloomberg and the Financial Times. Press can also be the local blogs. And I find a lot of my news on the local tech blogs. And I think that's and I think that a lot of small startup founders should embrace that, and also create your own press. Post your stuff on Instagram, on Twitter. I think when we first started, nobody cared about what we were doing, to be honest with you. I had zero funding. I was posting to a ghost audience on Twitter. This is what we're trying to do. So I think that there's different ways that you can generate generate your own press. We also used to brand kekes around Victoria Island with the word Clasher when kekes were allowed in Lagos, and with a pink Clasher logo. So that created a lot of virality. I think we spent maybe $200 or $300 doing that. So I think there's different ways to garner traction and press, and looking at the traditional media outlets isn't always the way forward.
Yeah, just to touch on that and just give kind of like 2 examples. I think definitely you don't have to generate traction through the blogs. You can generate it yourself. Like I've discovered founders from Twitter that were speaking about the traction they had made, and they were audacious enough to speak about it and weren't necessarily shying away from it. So also making noise and blowing your own trumpet when you are making progress, and even getting your consumers to support you in doing that. I think the other thing is giving like the current market, maybe you don't have as much capital to pay for certain type of media houses, you can generate it yourself. Like I know a company that gave like t-shirts to people that sell things on the road, and that's their own form of marketing. And that was how I saw the company as well. So just thinking about innovative ways to generate like an audience, I think in this current like climate is super helpful.
I also need to say we take for granted how the media also wants to write our stories as well. I think at the time when I started in South Africa, there used to be a time when we used to say, oh, time the media, because they would always say on Monday, they talk about stories that happened over the weekend. So generally, they wouldn't talk about your startup, but between Tuesday and Thursday, they're looking for that one inspirational story that they can talk about. So, and we used to always say, never allow. I don't want to say this, but we used to say, some journalists don't want to write articles for you. So with us, would say in my first startup, I'd write my own article and I'll send to a journalist and say, okay, this is my article. These are my pictures. Just take it to your editor. And it will really be great for the journalist, especially if that article gains a lot of momentum. So you always need to shoot your shot with a lot of journalists, because you might be surprised. There's so many inspirational stories that the media wants to talk about, because if they don't talk about all these inspirational stories, they're left with stories about someone got into an accident, someone fought with this person, this politician does that. So just tell your stories and give them out to the media, shout them out to the media.
Okay, I just wanted to give a minute to know if anyone else wanted to speak. But at the same time, a lot of publication media are not being used right now, and that's fine and all good because we have the internet. There are a lot of Substacks in which they talk about the startups. There are a lot of mediums in which people just talk about startups, and that's the beauty of social media. You get to see these people, you get to see highlights, you get to see people advertise their Substacks. And I think this is just to say that we should be able to build our social media, to build our views, whatever we interact with, in the way that would suit us. So even for startup founders, there are these Substacks, there are these communities on social media in which, I mean, if you're part of them, even if you know any of them, you can just reach out to them, and this is how they can tailor, or this is how you can also publicize what you do as a startup founder, even just as would like to, as an employee in a startup, and you think, okay, I have a product, I want it to reach so and so people. There are communities around these problems, around this solution, in which you can reach out to, and your problem or your solution will be used as it should be. Okay, so we have other questions here. Would you say Twitter is, I think this question can be to both founders as well as VCs, because I think Dolapo said she gets she see on Twitter some founders who are able to talk about their solution. But let me just continue. Would you say Twitter is a better platform than LinkedIn in terms of reach for founders as well as investors?
I say in terms of marketing, it depends. I feel like the reason why we talk about social media a lot as founders is because we are afraid of doing the more brutal work of meeting our people on the ground, which is below the market marketing, where you are on the streets, handing out pamphlets, talking to your target customers. So we usually just say, okay, let me quickly run to Instagram or Twitter. With me, I always say any platform works for you, depending on which you more like and you understand the culture of that platform, because every platform has its own culture. Twitter has its own culture, how people communicate, how people respond, and understanding that the Twitter streets are very brutal. So when you go the Twitter route, you need to understand the culture of Twitter. There's also the culture of LinkedIn. LinkedIn is more of a formal platform, so you need to communicate in a particular way. So Instagram as well. With me, I'm more of a brutal person. I do guerrilla marketing, so I'm usually on the streets talking to my customers a lot more, handing out flyers, showing banners why people need to sign up to us. Some people wouldn't prefer doing that. And one thing I would always say is that some of the best performing companies that have grown in Africa were successful because of being on the streets and talking to customers. Econet did the same thing. Dr. Strathmasiua would tell you that. I think even Flutterwave, they went on the streets as well. So your marketing, you need to figure out what works for you, but understand the culture of each marketing platform you use.
Yeah, it's not. It's
also
not.
add.
Sorry, go ahead. But yeah, I would say it's not.
Yeah.
It's not either or, right? Each platform has its pros and cons. So.
Yeah, and I was also add that you need to, yes, you need to work with what marketing works for you, but you also need to be where your clients and your investors are, right? And I really like what Daniela had said earlier about doing the work, doing the research to understand the investors that will relate with you, their investor thesis. Where are they, right? So they might not be on the street, but they might be at a particular conference. They might attend a particular webinar. So to be exposed to the investors that you're actually targeting, whether it's in the physical realm or in the virtual realm. So it's not about the platform. It's about being in the right rooms at the right time with the right people. And that is different for company A as opposed to company B. We shouldn't all be running as founders after YC or after the same big investors. There are many other investors who are actually in your space, whether it be healthcare, whether it be education, whether it be climate. It's not all fintech, as someone else pointed out.
Thank you everyone for speaking. So just the last question, but just to add also, I love how Nelly mentioned, there was a lot of successful company went to the ground, did on-the-ground marketing. Going forward, or even like in this present generation, social media is it's now in market. I mean, in Nigeria here, we call it tech Twitter, but I see a lot of founders who, they don't even have to talk about their business. They do not necessarily talk about their business, but they're very, very active in like conversations. They participate in conversations. Those are also a form of marketing. I mean, I do this, you're talking about this on your profile, you're the CEO, you're the founder of this, or you do this. Those are like forms of marketing that I think other people should not ignore. And I like how Adebola said, you should know what platform you're using and know how to tailor your communication to that platform. Either platform can be very impactful. Either platform can be very useful. It's just being able to tailor your message according to the platform you're using. And you don't know where the investor might be. You don't know where the VC might be, but everyone uses any platform. So just being able to tailor your communication material according to the platform you're on is very important. So just last question so we can round up. Are there common pitfalls female founders make, and what is the way forward? I think Adeolu, you can take the question.
I think one common pitfall that all companies, all small business owners make is to be so focused on funding and capital that you forget that you have a business to run. And when you're building the right kind of business, when you're putting the right strategy in place, when you're doing the hard work of hiring the right people, when you problems are and looking to solve those problems, then naturally your business will make money. And investors love to invest in businesses that make money and are sustainable. Not everyone is looking, and I actually welcome the current funding winter, where investors are starting to, as Dolapo had mentioned, do a deeper due diligence and not just throw money at anything that walks. So, let's, as founders, as small business owners, as SME CEOs, let's do the hard work of actually building sustainable businesses that are solving problems for our continent, and the money will come.
Can I quickly just add to that, right? I also think it's important how we frame the question, right? Because that question then implies that the problem is with kind of the female founders, right? And I think with everything that we've talked about today, I think if you take a step back, right, women are building important companies, right? In my sector, fintech, building important technology companies. These are women with kind of strong domain knowledge, know what they're doing, right? And I think it's helpful in terms of how we frame the questions with this problem, right? I think we want to avoid shifting the blame to kind of the supply side. So, I mean, it's just kind of my 2 cents, right? With the way that question was framed, right? At the end of the day, women are building very important companies. They know what they're doing with the domain knowledge, right? And so in addressing this huge funding gap, right, we just have to be very careful of how we frame the problem, right? So that we're not kind of shifting blame to the supply side.
Yes, I love how Adiola even answered. It's a general problem. It's not a gendered problem. I maybe the person was expecting, oh, you're not bold. But we have spoken to all of that. We've said whatever a man is doing, just think of 2 times 2 of it, because this be very bold, and maybe that's the answer the person was expecting. But problem is general. It's not about gender. Any problem a woman will face in business, it's almost the same a man will face. It's just being able to, we've said, it's know your stuff, speak as emphatic and as bold as you can about your stuff, and be very focused on what your problem is. Don't think it's gendered. Your problem is a general problem. So, and your solution doesn't have to be a gendered one also. It's different if you're focusing on the investor type. Okay, this will focus on women-led business. I'm trying to attract them. At the same time, we also said that you're the one who can educate an investor. It doesn't, even if his portfolio or the VC portfolio is filled with like women-led startups, if you're able to educate, you're able to communicate the problem you're solving and how impactful, how important it is to meeting the VC meeting investors' requirements, you should sell it. Don't be scared, don't be shy. Sell it as much and sell it as well as you can. So we have one more question, and this is the absolute last question because we're pressed for time. But this is specific. Hi, Tenny. The question is to you. So the person says, as one of the first companies selling pharmaceutical products online in Nigeria, what key advice would you give to young entrepreneurs looking to overcome funding challenge in the heavily regulated industries, particularly with hurdles like NAFDAC authorizations and navigating the complexities of pharmaceutical product distribution?
So I'm going to say something that maybe I shouldn't be quoted on, but there's this common thing when you're trying to innovate that it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. So say that, but don't quote me. First of all, and I think with healthcare, right, yes, you have things like NAFDAC. Obviously, you don't want to go and mix something that is going to kill 1,000 people. So if you're talking about production, you definitely have to follow like the rules. And I think the key thing is trying to be friends with your regulators. There's this thing whereby you think, they are the enemy. They're not the enemy. If you really, you want to start something, you can have conversations with them. So we're constantly talking with like our regulating bodies for us, which is PCN, Pharmaceutical Council of Nigeria. We have friends in the ministry. So we're able to like now at this point where we're having conversations about regulating the online space, you're able to sit at the table and have your own input as to what you think is going to happen there and, you know, the best way for them to regulate the space. But if you kind of like see them as the enemy and you're standoffish and you're creating your own in one corner and then you're waiting for them to come and catch you in quotes, it's not really going to work out. So, you know, let's be upfront about it and try to find out what they think about. I think they're human beings like you at the end of the day, you know, try and find out what they think about what you're trying to do. If it's something very, very restrictive, like, you know, trying to make a product. But if it's in terms of distribution, what we've been able to do is we work with people while leveraging, I would say, the already existing network. So we're just making the process better. So for example, on Pharma Run today, we work with registered licensed pharmacies, which are already approved by the regulators. We ensure that these pharmacies are carrying products that are already approved by NAFDAC. So within that space, that we're already working with what they've put down, but we're trying to, you know, make the process better, improve what's already on ground. We're not totally deviating from what is there. So I would say, you know, you have some sort of foundation if you are speaking particularly about pharma or healthcare. So as much, and it has to do with lives. So as much as, you know, I said we want to ask for forgiveness instead of, you know, asking for permission, you also want to make sure that you're carrying them along when you're doing these things. Because for us, when we started, it's a green space. Now there's a bit of regulation. Now there's something called an online pharmacy license that we all applied for last year. But when we started, there was no such thing, right? It was basically free for all. So you get to play in those type of spaces when you're very new and you're really creating something that is somewhat innovative. But as soon as you see you're getting a bit of traction, you want to go to the people involved. So you kind of are involved in creating these policies and you're able to make impact and guide kind of like these things so that they don't harm your business as much as possible. So yeah.
Thank you, Tenny, for that. I guess it's also important to take calculated risk. Don't take the one that after will come and shut down your business. It's very important.
I mean, shutting down business is one thing. You don't want to kill people. Like,
that's also very important. You're dealing with lives here, even even without health tech, even for fintech, the regulators are there for a reason. Every small, like 15 naira, you think, oh, it doesn't matter if I double the bill. It doesn't matter if it is very important. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you for the words of knowledge. Thank you for answering the questions. And to everyone listening, I hope we're able to get like nuggets and important information for every stage at which we're in. So we spoke about different things for women in general, not just startup founders, but women in general, business owners, entrepreneurs. It is very important we be as bold as, I don't say we have had to go through. There's some level that ask because I've had to go through. It's important to go through those levels in order to be on this stage, in order to be to even be before your investors. Don't ignore, don't skip those steps. Those steps are important. Those steps will help you build. But it's also important you are as courageous as you should be in taking those steps. And then the right doors will open for you. I like how, I think it was Farah that said, keep knocking on the door. Like, and then once it opens, make sure it never closes. Hold the door open, more opportunities will flow through. As you're able to clear one step, the information you need, the requirements, the materials you need will come to you. And also do your research properly. Information is available there. And then once you find, for instance, if you're a startup and then you're looking for an incubator, once you find an incubator, you'll find people who give the small ticket funds that you're looking for before you get to that YC. You can be in an incubator and then the startup beside you is going to YC, will go to YC. That's your link to YC. I mean, there were startups who were with Temi, YC backed now. If you know the founders of Temi, that's your link to YC. Someone said, also remember to network vertically as you're networking horizontally. Don't ignore your peers. Your friend who you think is working in a Paystack now is not more important than your friend who is working in, who might be working with Tenny now. Everyone is important. Remember to network vertically. Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you for speaking. Thank you for asking questions. Thank you for answering. And I hope we enjoyed the session as much as I did. Like my notes
notes are filled up. And have a nice day, everyone.
Much to just thank you so much to our panelists, thanks so much to our moderator, thank you so much for giving us your time. Thank you, Jess. I think that question you threw to the group was more like a little shaker for everyone to actually take back and say, okay, I think we need to go back to the drawing board, we need to start collaborating more, start connecting more ecosystem, making sure we're actually creating opportunities, creating that check for women to actually have that funding that they need, also providing that resources. Thank you so much, Teniola. And I think Dolapo had dropped a link to an event tomorrow, a landmark for those of you in Lagos to attend. That's mainly for women, actually, also similar to this creating that event. I think it's called WeTech. So and there's a link where you can register as well. But then the importance of this also is to connect with people, and I know that a lot of panelists have dropped that on the chat as well, to connect with them on LinkedIn or send them emails and just connect with them. So thank you so much. We are going to be doing further like a white paper, putting up on our social media pages as well as our websites on this event, and also putting in all the tips and nuggets that that has been dropped at the event also. So just look out, be on the lookout for that. Make sure you follow us. We do our best actually to connect with women and the ecosystem, women founders, women players. Also, we have a very good relationship with First Check Africa, where we usually invite them for our pitch Fridays or for our pitch events, just to connect our female founders with that opportunity to receive funding. And also we have some relationship with Ventures Platform as well, and they've been really good friends with us in coming through some of the activities that we invited them for. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for joining. Tenny, thank you so much. Thank you, Adiolu. Thank you, Abiodun. Thank you, Jess. Thank you, Nelly. Thank you, Yvonne. Thank you, Soraya. Thank you so much, everyone. And do enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very much, everyone. Oh yeah, and also do not forget to register to our Sustainable Finance Accelerator program. We'll be dropping the QR code where you can register. It is also a very good way for founders who are in the sustainable space to actually get the necessary funding that they require. It's also a good way for you to get access to other equity funding or loan or resources, or access to the market, or just access to actually being a provider to any of our customer base, regardless of the country that you're operating. And I think it's a good way to also connect with other players as well in the ecosystem. So do register, do also follow us on social media. We're always connecting with different organizations, the UNDP, on multiple projects that it's working on. Either it's on the Timbuktu FinTech Accelerator or the Timbuktu, many of its other subset sister programs that it's running. So do connect with us on social media as well. Thank you so much again. My name is Oyitokoni Abasa, and we will be seeing you at our next event. Just keep your eyes expecting our emails and also on our social media platforms. Thank you very much, everyone.
Welcome to Access Bank PLC for the Sustainable Finance Accelerator Program 2024. One of every 2 Nigerians will bank with Access Bank over the next few years. That is the goal. We are at the foundation level.
The business leaders see sustainable environment as a long-term gain project.
The NDCs speak to how we, as a country, Nigeria, are thinking about addressing climate change issues.
Welcome once again to the Access Bank Sustainable Finance Accelerator Program.
We are the largest bank in the country by assets, by deposits, by payment capacity, etc., etc.
We're on a journey.
Success Tab in Lagos, we've got tabs in Edo State, Enugu State is really trying to digitalize. So we've got a lot going on.
And a journey to take our country and our nation from where it is today to becoming an industrialized one.
Unfortunately, what seems like a lot going on is only accessible to about 2% of the country. So we need to scale.
we're not transitioning to gas. We are transitioning with gas. So gas is our transition from.
What we do is we are converting existing kekes and koropes from petrol engines to EVs.
So how can you bring in this to far north, south, east, west?
These are the partnerships that we want to bring together.
CSR across multinationals, across large corporations is a huge chunk of funds. What are we doing to try to green CSR?
So the government have done a lot, but then there is a need for awareness and sensitization, and I sincerely believe that this avenue provides us the opportunity to do that. So we're not where we want to be, but we'll get there.
And with that, we can bequeath a better economy, a better environment, a better government to those who are coming.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I encourage each and every one of you to take advantage of this, because what this will do is that it will push your businesses to the next level. And of course, we want to create that impact that is necessary for us to move to the next level in our beloved country, Nigeria.
Because failure is just that thing trying to move you in another direction. So you get as much from your losses as you do from your victories, because the losses are there to wake you up.
We see a startup failing. Now, what's the difference? The difference is basically because one has been supported and the other has not been supported. But generally speaking, I think that there are a lot of startups, and I mean, with a hub like AFF, a lot of startups will be willing to actually go into business knowing fully well that they will be supported by us.
Everybody is struggling with payment and looking for a new payment idea, and how, meanwhile, there's so much more that could be done in terms of social entrepreneurship. You have in the US a startup that is like an Uber for ambulances, but you don't have that here in this country. So what you have, which people don't really know much about, is there is a logistic company that delivers blood banks for hospitals, and that is big, you know, but we don't have people doing that. You have people competing for payment, for e-commerce. Meanwhile, there's so many other things you can be doing, financial management, financial planning. I feel like in this country, we're doing about 20% on the startup ecosystem, and I feel there's so much more that can be done.
Home to over 300 fintech startups with billions of dollars. Africa is on the rise.
As much as fintech is about technology, that technology has to work within the rules of the game to make sense.
The Big Tech Show travels across Africa on the quest to meet the minds at the forefront of these tech innovations.
This is the fourth revolution that Africans are participating in, solving unique problems in Africa for Africans.
Join us on our journey across Africa as we talk to innovators and game changers in Africa's tech industry.
Human-centered design methodology is really where you start with the end user in mind.
Spending time solving that problem that's bigger than yourself.
The Big Tech Show is brought to you by the African FinTech Foundry and Accelerate TV, powered by Access Bank.
Hi guys, it's Benjamin Dada here, and this is the Big Tech Show.
And I think I've seen a lot of nice apps, you understand? But of course, at the moment, I don't think there's any app that is better than the Access Bank Access More app. I mean, not because there's a kind of relationship with Access Bank, but the thinking, the technology, the engineering, you understand, the experience behind it. It's just something that we probably spend the best of time to look at. The biggest opportunity in Nigeria is still something that we've not even discovered.
True.
So we see the likes of Paystack, with about $200 million investment.
So at the AI Startup Lab, Yaba will bring ideas to life by embedding the capability of AI with world-class business mindset. And in doing that, will make serious impact socioeconomically. And indeed, the prediction that by 2030, AI will have added $16 trillion US to world economy. A share of that can be in Nigeria. And that is our dream, and that is our passion. Thank you.
We're in a very, very unique position in Nigeria right now from a technology perspective. You know, I was saying earlier on in a different talk that, you know, we say we're in the fourth industrial revolution right now, or the tail end of the fourth industrial revolution. You know, and if you look at Africa as a whole, what happened to us in the first, second, and third industrial revolution? Cake, in terms of talent. So when we talk about baking a bigger cake, what we're talking about is increasing that talent pool. So that means that, you know, organizations that are really serious about digitalization, you know, have to not just think about themselves. They have to think about the wider society. You have to basically produce and train more than you need. So for us really in FinTech NGR, that's FinTech Nigeria, you know, our role is to grow a bigger ecosystem that collaborates and promotes, you know, that FinTech industry within the country.
Looking at the country, the continent, and having the opportunity to experience payments in the UK especially, felt that perhaps Nigeria deserved better. So I started thinking about this whole idea of retail payments. I'm an engineer by training, never done banking, never done payments. But I could tell by going to the bank, then starting the queue, getting tally numbers, queuing up to get cash, going home, taking the risk of being robbed. I just felt there was a better way to do this. And that is where the idea to start IntelliSwitch came from. If you want to solve a problem, you are solving the problem for individuals. Understand individuals and deal with it. There should be that crop of people who still believe in the power of technology. You don't have to wake up one day so you realize that the generation of people like also went to school and studied engineering don't exist anymore. Everybody wants to be a musician, everybody wants to be a social influencer, because that is what they see. But somehow, if you want to solve real problems, technology is something you cannot ignore.
Part of my founding team included people I met in the university also. But one of the mistakes that people also make is not having enough industry experience before a startup. Yes. I reasoned to myself that, I mean, I've been an entrepreneur, and most entrepreneurs have always historically been entrepreneurs, right? I reasoned to myself then that if you want to enter an industry that is quite matured, like has an age, you need to get up to the state of the art. Getting to state of the art means that you should work in a place or at least learn the state of the art, right? So, and I'm looking around to some of our favorite startups that are doing quite well, and most of them are not. They are all experienced guys before they started. However, in terms of providing financial services, the central bank has licensed fintechs to provide financial services, either payment agency, switching, etc. So first of all, that fundamental difference means that there's a subset of financial services that fintechs can never touch unless you're a bank. Ability to take deposits and ability to give loans. So because ultimately every payment that you do as a fintech is going to be stored eventually as money, it means that a fintech needs a bank.
Yes.
And that is one of the first points of cooperation.
Yes.
Every fintech is an interesting client for every bank.
Yes.
In fact, some of the biggest clients that banks have today are fintechs. So that's one major point of collaboration that is not going to end.
Today, so let's take a look at it. Today, if I wanted to start a business, I will not even go and look for an office. I will start my business now.
Yes.
I don't need to look for an office because the most important people is my customers, and my customers don't even want to come to my office at all. They want to access my products and services. So my new office is actually my website, my web front, my Instagram page. That's what people do. Small businesses are the biggest employer of labor in developed economies, not government. And so we have 40 million small businesses that are somewhat excluded because they don't have access to services that make them sustainable, access that enables them to employ more people, right? To be more productive, right? As people change, lifestyles change, as people's mode of accessing services change, we must be able to be responsive to that and change that. So today, it's mobile. Tomorrow, it's going to be a different device. It could be Internet of Things. It could be, wearables, and I may be wearables, exactly. And I believe if you watch, I can't remember what that name of Arnold Schwarzenegger again. I can't remember it again. But
Terminator.
Not Terminator. I think it's the one where Total Recall. Fantastic. The new version, and you see, they're talking to people, and from their hand. That shit is going to happen. Believe me, because it's just a matter of time. You only have to watch. I'm a great fan of Star Wars and Star Trek. And if you watch Star Trek in the 70s, and see the devices, they were using mobile phones in the 70s, early 70s, as to talk, or they call them transponders. Today, it's
almost normal.
It's almost normal. Watch Star Trek, the last Star Trek in the last 5 years, and believe me, it's going to happen.
I was at a Google conference one day, and a developer came on stage and said, why do African countries like hiding their data? And it was like, it's kind of true, right? Either the data is not available, right, or it's not properly coordinated to really make sense, or people just don't know the significance and the kinds of value that it can create. So one of the tactical initiatives that we implemented under the data access pillar was the Open Lagos project. And we gave an update on that at our AOT 2.0 in December. So what the Open Lagos project really entails is digitizing millions of data sets across many civic subsectors in Lagos. So when you think about transport, when you think about health, when you think about community engagement, when you think about energy, what kinds of data points can lend to rapid development of Lagos, right? What kind of data points would increase citizen engagement, right? The higher the levels of engagement, better the solution builds, right? And so under the Open Lagos project, we have what we call the Eco 360 project. What that does is, after digitizing millions of data sets, these data sets are made available to the public, whether it's the general public or the solutions ecosystem. Today, as a developer, if you want to build an application for transportation, or you want to build an application for the health sector, I'm sure it will be very, very significant to have hospital data, right, that you can validate your solution with. Or if you can have traffic patterns, right, or how many traffic lights are in Lagos, or What kinds of road conditions do we have? All of these lend to better solution builds, right? And we thought it was incredibly important for developers and for the general public to have access to information, to data about their city, right? That would ultimately lend to better solutions.
The Big Tech Show has landed in Rwanda. I'll be speaking with tech giants SokoWatch, CC Hub, and Tap and Go. Who is first on my list? Keep watching to find out.
You use tech to sell to your customers. Do your customers use that same tech to sell to their end consumers?
I would say most of them do not, but that is where that's a gap that SokoWatch is hoping to bridge in terms of how to help those shops embed technology as well into what they're doing to help them become more, self-reliable, to where they can do all these things on their own. So it's not there yet, but it's something that we're working on.
So, I mean, anytime people ask me and they come here, the first thing I would say is, have you seen this place? Rwanda is just really beautiful. But also, they've sort of created an ecosystem that inspires creativity. And they've invested a lot in sort of creating an enabling environment for technologists and innovation, both foreign and local. So the ease of doing business is really here. And so for us, we were looking for a place that would not only just deepen and broaden our opportunity to sort of collaborate with, across sectors, on the continent, and Rwanda gave us that opportunity. I mean, and it's just allowed, because a lot of our work is up here. And so you need a place that allows you to just kind of inspire that energy and that creativity, and Rwanda gives us that.
Right, without having to worry about traffic.
Exactly, and worried about traffic and worried about power and all that stuff, so.
Kenya has been nicknamed the Silicon Savannah for many good reasons. Today, I'm going to be speaking with Kenneth Griffith, who is the CEO of the first customer experience company in Africa. Ajua, right? How do you pronounce it?
Ajua, if correct.
Okay, great.
Awesome.
So what does that mean? Right? How did that name come to be?
So Ajua, actually, it's a game. It's it's original chess. Originated in Africa.
Okay.
And it's actually exported to 90 different countries, right? So if you think about it, we think of Ajua as one of those tech startups that is going to grow beyond Africa and originate in Africa. So we really embrace the name Ajua because we believe that the next generation tech is actually going to emerge from the continent. If you look at the tech in Africa, they're trying to solve inherent consumer problems, right? Whether it's health, education, better transaction systems.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to enable. Understanding who the consumer is. Unless you understand who the consumer is, you can't design products and services for them.
Kenya has been nicknamed the Silicon Savannah for many good reasons. Today on the show, I'm going to be speaking to the godfather of fintech and innovation, Professor Ndemu. It's going to be amazing. Professor Ndemu, you have one of the most versatile and learned profiles I've ever come across. So not only do you teach entrepreneurship at the University of Nairobi Business School, you are also on the board of M-Pesa, right? So my first question is, how did you get here? Like, what's your story from growing up to now?
In this emerging tech, artificial intelligence, blockchain, what do you hear now, the narrative? Artificial intelligence is going to finish jobs. Yeah, of course the jobs would change from what they were to new. All we need to do is we create capacity. We train so many data analysts, we train so many people who are, right now Africans are labeling for AI in the US. That is what you find there, thousands. That is the low-end jobs. How do we move to the next level?
How do you think more women can rise to the level of leadership, especially in a very male-dominated industry like tech?
That's a good question, and I think it requires,
different players to participate. You know, I think we need to make bold decisions in creating more enabling spaces for women, stripping out any unconscious bias in our hiring efforts. You know, I think there's now what I'm seeing from, you know, leaders in Nadella and in other tech companies is there's really a keenness to create a more diverse and inclusive space that enables anyone, whether you're a woman who's rising up in your career, you know, to be able to create a more enabling environment for everyone.
Yeah.
So, which is exciting to see. Yeah.
Hi guys, it's Benjamin here, and the Big Tech Show is coming to you from the former Gold Coast, now known as Ghana. I've got one mission and one mission only, to track down Accra's biggest tech CEOs. Paul, Clydestone is an outlier. I mean, last year you celebrated 31 years old. How have you managed to exist for this long?
Well, it's staying focused,
Okay.
looking at solving problems in the marketplace and being able to adapt over time. Because if you don't adapt, then you become stale and you go out of business. Actually, Clydestone started in 1986 in the UK. So I started in 1986 in the UK, and I eventually set up the Ghana office in 1989. And I moved from the UK to Ghana. So Clydestone has been around for a long time, over 3 decades.
Yes.
So I think, you know, when we started, the industry was very different from what it is now. And so we've worked on several products and projects, and we have evolved with time. You know, we started just selling computers, fax machines, with